because we're in a symposium of manufacturers with the production of vaccines with wholesales and A cells vaccines, and has been produced in many different sites in France and Canada. And the one in France, and you have five component vaccine that is available in the market. So to start this presentation, if you could please put on the first slide, I would like to compare the terms of production of the vaccines. And I know that some steps are very much similar. When we go through this theme of detoxification, we think that there's a difference in the manufacturing of both vaccines, because the vaccines of whole cells that have been successful in the treatment of diseases have been facing complex situations regarding safety and the reaction to them. So in the 70s and the 80s, many countries in global level have decided to not use the wholesale vaccines. And on the other hand, we started to do a cell vaccines due to the reactions. And we have the production that is differentiated and in a way that only some components of the bacteria for its production, because the whole cell production has more than 3,000 different proteins that are inoculated. One of them can have one, two, three, up to 4 components. Furthermore, the number of components, and this is where one has the benefit of decrease direct reactions due to the elements. So the first element is and has accomplished this, and many countries started producing them in the 90s, and from the 2000s, we think that countries with average economies started the manufacturing. Mexico was the first country in Latin America, and then was followed by Costa Rica. And thank you, Dr. Maria Luisa, as the second country in Latin America to produce these vaccines. So it's important to make this differentiation between the vaccines, because currently the knowledge that exists regarding the whole cell vaccines is a knowledge that is essential in vaccines that were used many years ago, but nowadays they're not being commercialized. So there are implications, because in the way that the vaccines are manufactured have more repercussions that we have discussed, and we have to understand in this current context. Currently, we know that these differentiation in the manufacturing, the formulation has a key role. Unfortunately, the technology of wholesale vaccines do not consider the exact knowledge of the quantity of antigens as is known as a whole, seeking evidence of where there is a response to certain components. So this is not known the exact quantity of antigens. Differently from the A cells vaccines has the same as the 12. So the dosages. So you see the consistency of the batches, and you have more variability in the production of vaccination comparing to the acellular vaccines. Another topic that is relevant is that when we measure the immunogenicity of the vaccination, and we have trials for each one of them, and they are not the same. So some use the animal model that is a little bit old, considered as old, and you have to see the organization of intracranial on mice and in an experimental model, and also ELISA and serum that are much easier to be reproduced and to measure and to quantify. And from that, it is possible to have a correlate and a comparison between a manufacturing and production.
Este concepto de inmunogenicidad nos lleva a otra variable importante, que es el desempeño clínico de la vacuna. Una vacuna donde se conoce la formulación, donde se conoce la inmunogenicidad, es más fácil predecir cómo se va a comportar a nivel de la clínica. Y por eso es que encontramos diferencias importantes entre ambas vacunas, que resaltan la importancia de tener la evidencia de cada una de ellas. Porque el siguiente elemento que encontramos es que, según la Organización Mundial de la Salud, conoce esta posible variabilidad en las vacunas de célula entera, y en la publicación, en el último position paper de la Organización Mundial de la Salud, reconocen que una vacuna de célula entera existente puede ir desde una eficacia de 36% hasta 96%. Una variabilidad que es bastante amplia, y de hecho reconoce también la Organización Mundial de la Salud que el proceso de precalificación tiene sus limitaciones. En otras palabras, el hecho de que una vacuna esté precalificada en un año determinado o en un momento determinado no garantiza que esta vacuna tendrá la misma calidad por el resto del tiempo. Y es por eso que las agencias regulatorias nacionales llevan a cabo un proceso de registro y de pruebas sobre las vacunas que van a ser utilizadas en el país, además de la precalificación. Y algunos ejemplos les pongo en este slide, donde algunas vacunas acelulares que estaban con precalificación, utilizadas en otras partes del mundo, cuando fueron valoradas por la agencia local, no cumplieron con los criterios necesarios para que les fuera otorgado el registro. Yo no estoy diciendo que son vacunas buenas o son vacunas malas, yo solamente estoy diciendo que la evidencia que las respalda es todavía no suficiente para algunas agencias regulatorias como Anvisa o como el Instituto de Salud Pública de Chile, que tuvieron a bien no registrar vacunas que no cumplían con los criterios necesarios con respecto a esta calidad de la que hemos hablado o a esta variabilidad que puede existir en las vacunas de célula entera. Si esto lo llevamos ahora a la parte clínica, esta variabilidad, también encontramos diferencias importantes, mientras que si analizamos diferentes estudios de la vacuna de acellular que están aquí a la derecha, tanto en serie primaria como en dosis de refuerzo, y analizamos los dos antígenos que tiene la vacuna de dos componentes, vemos que existe una reproducibilidad clínica a diferentes dosis, en el sentido de diferentes esquemas de vacunación y con diferentes poblaciones, tanto en la serie primaria como en la serie de refuerzo. Mientras que vacunas de célula entera probadas en diferentes países con los mismos esquemas de vacunación pueden tener una variabilidad tan importante que va como un estudio que demostró que una vacuna pentavalente del Serum Institute a los 7 meses de edad, esto es un mes después de la serie primaria, el 96% de los niños, de los sujetos, habían obtenido los niveles de seroprotección, que sabemos que no existe un correlato de seroprotección para pertussis, pero por lo menos habían alcanzado un límite de inmunogenicidad que para ellos era el límite superior. Mismo estudio, varios años después, llevado a cabo en Irán, en misma fecha, un mes después de la serie primaria, demostró que el 64% obtenía este nivel. Y otro estudio que llevó el seguimiento 6 meses después, demostraba que solo el 17% de aquellos que habían recibido la serie primaria todavía tenían títulos seroprotectores 6 meses después de haber recibido la tercera dosis. ¿Qué podemos ver con esto? Lo que vengo presentando desde un inicio, que la manera como se producen las vacunas y la cuantificación y formulación de los antígenos puede tener esta variabilidad en el tiempo con respecto a la inmunogenicidad y a su traducción en la clínica. Esto es con respecto a la parte inmunológica de las vacunas. Y por otro lado, también esta formulación diferenciada o que puede tener diferentes cantidades de los diferentes antígenos, también puede provocar que la reactogenicidad sea diferente. Y aquí 2 ejemplos muy claros. En la izquierda ven el ejemplo de lo que sucedió en El Salvador en 2018 y 2019, cómo utilizando la misma vacuna, un año tuvieron un pico muy importante de reacciones adversas, utilizando la misma vacuna en el mismo esquema y las mismas dosis. ¿Qué pasó en El Salvador? Que años después, el año pasado, en 2023, han mudado a una vacuna acellular precisamente por datos como este, el incremento súbito de la variabilidad en la reactogenicidad. Chile es otro país que mudó hacia las vacunas acelulares y el caso de Chile es muy interesante porque ellos estaban utilizando una vacuna de célula entera y tenían más o menos una incidencia de 40 eventos adversos presentados por 1000 sujetos vacunados. De pronto cambian a otra vacuna pentavalente de célula entera de otro productor y ven un aumento que va aproximadamente del 30%, de 40%, se les dispara a 56 el número de reacciones adversas, muchas de ellas de tipo apnea, en prematuros, y por lo tanto deciden regresar a la vacuna anterior que tenían de célula entera, y ustedes pueden ver cómo disminuye otra vez la incidencia de los eventos adversos, y después en 2018 deciden cambiar a una vacuna celular la mitad del año, y por eso ven otra vez el descenso importante, y finalmente en 2020, ya cuando han implementado la vacuna acelular, tienen un control de los eventos adversos que no solamente es un evento adverso que puede traer malestar, obviamente, al niño, sino que también tiene efectos sobre los padres y finalmente tiene un efecto muy importante que hoy es una de nuestras grandes preocupaciones, que es la cobertura vacunal. Cuando se tienen este tipo de eventos, en ocasiones se puede demostrar claramente el impacto que puede tener en términos de las coberturas. Y así les muestro un ejemplo aquí en Brasil, en Araraquara, donde se hizo un interesante estudio y se cuantificó la cobertura vacunal en comparativa con los niños que habían tenido eventos adversos y los que no habían sufrido eventos adversos. Y si tomamos en cuenta la cobertura vacunal, vemos que hay cerca de 20 puntos porcentuales de diferencia en un niño que tuvo un evento adverso y el que no. En otras palabras, los eventos adversos juegan un papel importante en la salud pública y pueden tener un efecto en las coberturas que hoy, en la era post-COVID, si bien es cierto que hemos empezado a recuperar las coberturas de vacunación, todavía no estamos a los niveles que estábamos pre-COVID y hoy tenemos que hacer un esfuerzo al respecto. Y termino con un último slide donde muestra los diferentes países a nivel mundial que han ido mudando o migrando hacia la vacuna acelular, en la mayoría de ellos la vacuna hexavalente, y vemos que tan solo el año pasado Paraguay mudó completamente a una vacuna hexavalente, El Salvador también mudó a una vacuna hexavalente, y empezamos a ver que los países del norte de África también están mudando hacia vacunas hexavalentes acelulares, lo que ya había hecho Norteamérica desde la década de los 90 y Europa a principio del año 2000. La pregunta sería, y quizás es una pregunta para la doctora María Luisa Ávila, ¿cuándo es que vamos a ver al resto de los países de América Latina mudar hacia una opción más segura que proteja contra la enfermedad y que nos ayude a aumentar las coberturas vacunales? Muchas gracias.
Bueno, ahora invitamos a la doctora María Luisa, que está físicamente a distancia en Costa Rica, mas su espíritu está acá con nosotros.
Who is in Costa Rica, and the main thing is that
Este es un trabajo duro, mas es un trabajo que todos tenemos orgullo de participar. Con usted, María Luisa.
Primero, agradecer enormemente la invitación a este importante simposio. Créanme que me agradaría enormemente estar no solo en espíritu, sino presencial en Brasil, un país que me encanta, y poder saludar a tan queridos amigos que estoy segura están por ahí. Yo les voy a hablar en los siguientes 15 minutos de cuál ha sido la experiencia con vacunas acelulares y, bueno, también pentavalente, que es la que usa Costa Rica, en cuanto a los programas de salud pública en América Latina. Mis obvios conflictos de interés para esta presentación, y aunque yo sé que ustedes lo saben, pero nunca está de más recordar la importancia que tiene la inmunización en la niñez. La prevención de la enfermedad es una parte, pero también tiene un beneficio a largo plazo, porque esos niños a los que hoy protegemos son los niños que no se van a enfermar y van a poder crecer como adultos sanos. Y por supuesto, la alta inmunización nos produce la inmunidad colectiva, de tal manera que las vacunas no solo protegen a la persona que las recibe, sino indirectamente a la población vulnerable, sobre todo recién nacidos y pacientes inmunosuprimidos, que en nuestra región han aumentado bastante gracias a mejores técnicas de identificación, de diagnóstico y por supuesto de manejo. Y esto es parte de lo que nosotros tenemos que defender como infectólogos, como pediatras y como vacunólogos. La vacunación sigue siendo muy importante, y en una era donde tiene lamentablemente tantos detractores con voz, nosotros tenemos que ser muy firmes en enfocarnos en estos enormes beneficios que tiene la vacuna. Recientemente, varios de la Sociedad Latinoamericana de Infectología Pediátrica publicamos este artículo. Y este artículo era para emitir una alerta de lo que estaba pasando en la región relacionado con enfermedades prevenibles por vacunación. ¿Qué tipos de riesgo? Bueno, sabemos de las bajas coberturas que lamentablemente vienen desde hace algunos años y que la pandemia las exacerbó. Tenemos difteria en algunos países, tenemos algunos casos aislados de tétanos neonatal. Estamos ahora ante una alerta mundial contra el virus del sarampión y una serie más de enfermedades, como por ejemplo la tosferina, que si bien es cierto, hemos trabajado bastantes años en este tema, todavía sigue siendo una amenaza, y sigue siendo una amenaza no solamente por coberturas vacunales, por tipos de vacuna, sino también por el comportamiento epidemiológico que esta enfermedad tiene. Así es que tenemos que estar conscientes que en América Latina estamos en un momento álgido, y que ese momento álgido requiere que tomemos acciones para mejorar coberturas y evitar que las proyecciones que se hacen a futuro no se cumplan. Y esto es lo que les comentaba. Vean ustedes, por ejemplo, con relación a las metas para el 2030, donde la idea es alcanzar un 93% de cobertura y esta es enfocada a la región de las Américas, que si lo comparamos con el resto del mundo no estamos tan mal, pero vean ustedes que en el 2019 teníamos un 84% y en el 2022 un 83%. Esto ha aumentado un poquito en el año 2023, pero todavía no alcanzamos una buena meta. Y sabemos que tenemos que estar por encima del 90%, no solamente en Costa Rica, no solamente en Chile, no solo en Brasil, sino también a nivel mundial. Polio, ¿qué pasa con polio? Sabemos que hay casos en regiones muy apartadas de nuestra región, pero vean lo que está pasando en Latinoamérica y en las Américas en general, donde el poliovirus derivado de la vacuna es el que nos ha venido produciendo brotes. Y mucha gente dice, pero brotes, pero si es un caso, son dos casos. No, no, es que por definición un solo caso de polio, de una enfermedad que encontramos eliminada de la región como poliovirus salvaje, ya tiene que lanzar todas las alertas. Y recientemente es posible que ustedes ya lo hayan leído, la respuesta a los brotes de poliovirus derivado de la vacuna a nivel mundial ha venido bajando en cuanto a calidad de respuesta. Y esto es, sin lugar a dudas, algo que nosotros como latinoamericanos tenemos que sentir preocupación. Vienen las vacunas acelulares. César ya nos dio una excelente charla al respecto, sobre todo de las hexavalentes, que tienen unas enormes ventajas. Yo simplemente menciono algunas de ellas. Una sola punzada da protección. Cada vez los papás están más preocupados por la cantidad de inyecciones que reciben los niños, y con toda razón. Así es que poder simplificar y mejorar esa aplicación de la vacuna no solamente produce satisfacción en el usuario, sino que aumenta la cobertura. El perfil de seguridad es muy bueno. Lamentablemente, mucha gente confunde reactogenicidad con seguridad. Así es que vacunas que sean menos reactogénicas, que además también tienen un buen perfil de seguridad, van a ser mejor aceptadas. Obviamente hay una alta eficacia estas vacunas y tienen muy buena habilidad para estimular una respuesta inmune robusta, como también ya César nos ha venido mencionando. Y tienen un enorme potencial de reducir la cantidad de enfermedades prevenibles por vacunación en América Latina, que ese debería ser el objeto primordial de trabajo para los siguientes meses y por supuesto los siguientes años. Y un aspecto que nos gusta mucho mencionar, porque vivimos en una región y un mundo lamentablemente muy desigual, con poca equidad, donde los servicios de salud no están llenando la satisfacción de los usuarios. Y tenemos una herramienta tan importante como la vacuna que produce equidad. Un niño vacunado en Brasil es igual que un niño vacunado en Costa Rica. Y si eso no es igualar, y si eso no es equidad, pues díganme ustedes qué otra cosa podría serlo. Así es que el poder asegurar los servicios de vacunación nos va a producir una mayor equidad, una reducción en la necesidad de servicios de salud y una posibilidad enorme de que ese niño y niña se desarrolle en el futuro con todos sus potenciales. Y esa es otra cosa que las vacunas acelulares nos pueden dar. El doctor Mascareña me hizo spoiler con la diapositiva que yo también iba a presentar, donde vemos que la gran mayoría de los países de nuestra región están aplicando vacunas combinadas, ya sea la penta, como es el caso de Costa Rica, que ya se está haciendo el análisis a nivel de la Comisión Nacional de Inmunización para pasarnos a una vacuna hexavalente, y ya otros países lo han hecho. Recientemente, César lo mencionó, el año pasado Paraguay lo hizo, y por las referencias que los colegas nos han dado, con muy buena aceptabilidad. Sin embargo, todavía quedan algunas regiones del mundo, las que están marcadas en verde, que siguen utilizando la vacuna acelular. Y vamos a ver, no decimos que vacuna celular sea una mala vacuna, pero en un mundo de reticencia vacunal, donde las personas están esperando cualquier tipo de reacción para desacreditar un programa, sin lugar a dudas nosotros tenemos que ofrecer vacunas menos reactogénicas, que sean lo suficientemente seguros para contener los diferentes brotes y las posibilidades de brote en el futuro, y que obviamente hagan una protección en una sola dosis. César decía que quizás yo debería referirme a cuándo van los programas a evolucionar. Yo esperaría que pronto, y ustedes ven, como les decía, que ya una gran mayoría de países lo están haciendo. Sin embargo, se vienen enormes retos para la región. Entre esos retos está la contracción económica que los países han tenido secundario a la pandemia. También está en el tema de los movimientos antivacunas y también, en cierta manera, están los que siguen diciendo que no importa vacunar con vacunas de células enteras y que incluso algunos dicen que secundario a eso es que han aumentado los casos. Pero Costa Rica es precisamente uno de los países que demuestra, y Salvador también, que demuestran que eso no es cierto. Nosotros teníamos con vacunas de células enteras coberturas muy altas, sobre todo en quintiles de desarrollo más altos, y resulta que tuvimos brotes que nos movieron en un punto la mortalidad infantil. Y ahora, desde que nosotros vacunamos con pentavalente, no solamente las coberturas, y lo voy a enseñar más adelante, entre los quintiles más altos de desarrollo y los más bajos se igualó, sino que hemos tenido la enfermedad bastante controlada con un par de casos identificados recientemente en población adulta, sin ningún tipo de repercusión hospitalaria para esos pacientes. Así es que esperemos que pronto este mapa sea un mapa totalmente verde y, como dice por ahí, el futuro será verde o no será, y me gusta hacer alusión a eso refiriéndonos a las vacunas. Así es que en la región hay una enorme oportunidad para el cambio porque contamos con la posibilidad de hacerlo. Y precisamente me voy a referir en mis siguientes diapositivas a un estudio de investigación que hicimos colegas de México, el doctor Betancourt de Panamá, la doctora Ana Gabriela Luca, Juan Pablo Torres de Chile, Ruby Trejo y Carlos Espinal de la Florida International University, que fue el que ideó el estudio, y en este caso yo como representante de Costa Rica. Y nuestro objetivo, y ya el artículo ya está escrito, se está mandando a publicar, estamos esperando respuesta de los revisores. El objetivo básico era comparar las estrategias vacunales contra tosferina y su impacto en 4 países de América Latina. Esperamos en el futuro podamos incluir a más países. Y empiezo con el caso de Costa Rica, que yo les decía. Ven ustedes que Costa Rica vacuna desde el año 1950 con DPT. En ese momento 1 y 2 dosis, tuvimos una bajada importante de casos, pero en la década de los 70 se incluye la 4ª y 5ª dosis dentro del esquema nacional y notamos una baja muy importante a finales de la década de los 70 que se mantuvo relativamente estable a lo largo del tiempo. Sin embargo, en la década de los 2000, que mejoramos las técnicas de laboratorio y la vigilancia, empezamos a notar casos. Y eso nos indujo a que introdujéramos en el año 2007 la estrategia Capullo, que era vacunar con TDAP en el posparto inmediato. Y ustedes ven cómo sí logramos una disminución. En el año 2007 no se sabía que ya se podía vacunar embarazadas o no estaba autorizado vacunar embarazadas, y nosotros empezamos a ver qué otras cosas deberíamos hacer para mejorar coberturas y reducir casos reportados. Y bueno, lo que hicimos fue hacer el cambio a la pentavalente con pertusia celular y, por supuesto, polio intramuscular en el año 2010, y ya para el 2011 nosotros pudimos pasarnos a la vacunación de mujeres embarazadas. Se logró una reducción muy importante de las hospitalizaciones y sobre todo las hospitalizaciones y muertes en niños menores de 1 año. Tosferina lo seguimos reportando, pero ya eran casos en poblaciones que no habían sido vacunadas, y la publicación la hicimos en enero del 2022, donde describimos 50 años de historia del manejo de la tosferina en Costa Rica. Y lo que les mencionaba, ustedes pueden ver acá cuál es la cobertura de la 3ª dosis de EPT, que como saben es un marcador de calidad de los programas desde el año 1980 hacia el año 2022. Y ven cómo en los últimos años las coberturas nuestras sí superaron el 90%. Había momentos en nuestra historia que tuvimos coberturas menos del 90% y fueron los momentos de mayor riesgo para el país. Y esto es lo que les quería mostrar. Estos son datos que se hicieron independientes de los ministerios de salud y, por supuesto, los que hemos venido publicando sobre el tema. Y ustedes ven en celeste más claro el 2011 y en azul oscuro el 2018. con respecto a los quintiles de desarrollo. Vean lo mal que estábamos vacunando a los de mayor riesgo y de más bajas posibilidades económicas. No llegábamos ni al 90. Y por supuesto, gente de otros quintiles de desarrollo, como por ejemplo el cuarto y el quinto, tenían una mejor cobertura porque estaban comprando la vacuna a nivel privado. Entonces, por supuesto que se estaban vacunando. Pero una vez que nosotros hicimos el cambio, vean cómo estos quintiles se fueron igualando y en todos ellos estamos por encima del 95%. Obviamente el cuarto quintil está casi en un 100% y el quinto en un 98%, pero ven el de mayor riesgo, el primero y segundo quintil superaron el 95% de cobertura. ¿Qué nos dice esto? Buena aceptación de la vacuna y mamás y papás que si el niño no les hizo reacción en los 2 meses de vida cuando le tocó la primera dosis, van a acudir a las siguientes dosis sin problema. Aquí pueden ver lo que ha pasado con México. César conoce muy bien la epidemiología de su país. México empieza a utilizar la vacuna pentavalente en el año 1999. Posteriormente siguen aumentando coberturas con respecto a la utilización ya de la TDAP, que la introducen a partir del año 2007. Ya México está utilizando una vacuna hexavalente con una publicación reciente muy buena, y también es un país que a partir del 2011 empieza a vacunar contra la embarazada. De hecho, ya nosotros, y liderado por la doctora Ángela Gentile, tenemos el artículo de publicación, se presentó en el pasado ICMIS en Costa Rica en el mes pasado. Ya tenemos el estudio terminado para enviar a publicar cuál ha sido el impacto de vacunar embarazadas en nuestra región. Sobra decir que el impacto ha sido muy positivo. Panamá igual, Panamá empieza a vacunar en el año 2000 con penta, pero penta de células enteras. En el año 2008 vacuna embarazadas, y también para el año 2014 introduce ya la vacuna hexavalente. Y ustedes ven como a lo largo del tiempo, cada vez que hacen una intervención, la cantidad de casos empiezan a disminuir. Sabemos que con tosferina cada 4 o 5 años eventualmente podemos tener algún brote de la enfermedad, pero son brotes que no pasan a más precisamente, y por a más me refiero a hospitalización y muerte, precisamente porque hay una población que se encuentra bien vacunada. Y esta es la cobertura de Panamá para el año 2022, con los diferentes esquemas que ellos han venido utilizando, primera, segunda dosis de hexa, con los booster de la tetravalente y a los 18 meses y a los 4 años, y ustedes ven cómo también las coberturas de Panamá han venido aumentando. Ahí hay una de 123%, como siempre puede haber algún problema de registro, pero en términos generales, desde que Panamá utiliza la vacuna hexavalente con el componente tosferina acellular, sus coberturas también sobrepasan el 90% y en algunas ocasiones sobrepasan el 95%. Y esto es Chile, la flecha roja arriba es porque está del 2022 hacia el 2080, no al revés. También es un país que a raíz de los cambios que ha venido haciendo, su cobertura ha mejorado, la aceptación de las personas hacia la vacuna también. Hay diferentes estudios, algunos de ellos liderados por el doctor Miguel O'Ryan y el doctor Juan Pablo Torres, que nos han mostrado cómo la aceptación de estas vacunas para la población en general es muy importante, y que la pérdida vacunal por falta a la siguiente cita de control no se da con tanta frecuencia como cuando se usaba la vacuna de células enteras. Y ustedes ven acá también la cobertura que tiene Chile durante los años 2018 al 22. Ya Chile también se pasó en el año 2019 a la vacuna hexavalente, y ustedes ven que las coberturas de ellos son coberturas muy buenas. De hecho, Chile es uno de los países que junto con Costa Rica, Uruguay y bueno, Cuba, que da algunos reportes, algunas personas dudan, yo la verdad que no, me parece que pueden ser buenas coberturas, han mantenido cobertura a lo largo del tiempo. Y ustedes ven aquí los casos y la incidencia en Chile del 2007 al 2021. Tuvieron un brote relativamente importante entre el año 2010 y el 2013, y ya posteriormente con los ajustes a las coberturas que ellos han venido haciendo y sobre todo a las vacunas que han venido utilizando, esa reducción es muy evidente en la gráfica que les estoy mostrando. Y también esta gráfica me gusta mucho porque mide la incidencia en niños menores de 12 meses, que son esa población en la que nos da miedo que les dé tosferina porque pueden terminar en una unidad de cuidado intensivo. Y vean ustedes qué buenos datos los del 2019, 20 y 2021 comparado con años previos cuando se utilizaban otros tipos de vacunas. Ellos hacen esta diferencia 2015, 2018, 2019, 2021, siendo el punto de inflexión la utilización de vacunas acelulares a partir del año 2019. Bueno, sin lugar a dudas, y esta es también una publicación del año pasado que apareció en Esper Vaccine, y son datos post-marketing o post-licencia de la vacuna, donde mostramos que hay una persistencia de anticuerpos a lo largo del tiempo, anticuerpos protectores contra las enfermedades para las cuales la vacuna protege, hepatitis B. Lamentablemente muchos países no están vacunando con hepatitis B, sigue siendo de alto riesgo en nuestra región, con una memoria inmune que sobrepasa los 10 años y una efectividad en el mundo real, datos del mundo real, del 97%. Y de nuevo, un perfil de seguridad muy favorable en los estudios post-marketing. Así es que podemos decir que la inmunogenicidad a largo plazo, que hay efectividad en el mundo real y que el perfil de seguridad es favorable y que esto refuerza el valor de vacunar y en pediatría, como anteriormente yo les comentaba. Nos queda mucho camino por andar en el futuro. La experiencia de las vacunas acelulares introducidas en América Latina se sigue generando y sigue siendo una muy buena información prometedora que nos abre oportunidades y que por supuesto nos permite que los programas de inmunización en pediatría se actualicen, se modernicen y le llegue a la mayor cantidad de gente posible. Estos son mis contactos, solamente me queda darles las gracias por su atención y reiterar mi agradecimiento por la invitación. Que tengan muy buenas tardes.
Bom, muito obrigado. Já passou 2 minutos do horário previsto, mas acho que o evento foi importante, as apresentações. E agora esperamos, então, comemorar quando a Fiocruz, o Bio-Manguinhos começarem a produzir a vacina hexavalente acellular brasileira. Muito obrigado por tudo. O QR Code para vocês avaliarem o evento. Tá? Então, o QR Code, por favor, façam a avaliação do evento. Muito obrigado.
Bem, dando então continuidade à programação.
With the program, we invite as a chair of the How to Achieve Maturity and Self-Sufficiency, Brazilian Economic Industrial Complex, How to Achieve Maturity and Self-Sufficiency, Artur Couto, representative of Bio-Manguinhos and Fiocruz, and also technology development and raw materials in the Ministry of Health, Gadelha, who is currently in a committee of crisis due to the catastrophe in Rio Grande do Sul state.
Eu acabei de receber essa mudança.
So I just was just aware of this change. So Dr. Akira, please, I pass the floor to you. We are honored to pass the floor to you. I have just received this message. Please do not scold me.
E como debatedores, vê se eu estou certa agora, tá?
And as fellow speakers in this panel, we invite Dr. Technical Director of Butantan Institute, Esper Kallás. He's a physician. He has a residency in infectology in the Servidor Público de São Paulo, and also in the Cesar University in the United States, researching the production of specific antigens of cytokines by lymphocytes T after infection and vaccination. He has a master's in the Federal University of São Paulo, and his dissertation analyzed the risk of infection by HIV in the detention house of São Paulo, and he also studies infectious diseases and molecular diseases in the Federal University of São Paulo, where he's a tenured professor. And I invite the professor from the Luiz Marinho, from the official laboratories of Brazil. He's a master in politics of medications by the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, and also pharmacologist and the Federal University of Minas Gerais. He was a director in Ezequiel Dias Institute, the president of the board of the Brazilian Association of Fine Chemistry, Biotechnology, and his specialty is Odilon Costa. He has a degree in business administration. He was executive productions in the Union of Pharmaceutical Products and Sindus Pharma and Sinfar of Rio de Janeiro. And he received an award of Olavo Fontoura of Industrial Merit of Sindus Pharma. He's director of institutional relations of Laboratory Cristália. So I pass the floor to Dr. Akira.
Vocês estão me confundindo.
Okay, you're confusing me. So Dr. Artur was the one who I invited previously.
Peraí, vamos lá, a gente chega lá,
Okay.
Ele vai ser debatedor, exatamente.
He's going to be one of the panelists. So Artur Couto, please. Invite you to the stage. So he's Vice Director of Management and Institutional Development of the Bio-Manguinhos of Fiocruz. Have I mentioned your CV, your resume? Can I say, Dr. Akiris? So I apologize. See if I'm going to make any mistakes. So he is master in economy. He has a executive MBA in the COPEAD, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and public administration in FGV. He has extensive curriculum in public health, and he was a director in Bio-Manguinhos Fiocruz, where he initiated 2 manufacturing units, and he is a member of Moraes, member of the Administration Council for Molecular Biology in the Paraná State, and also director in the Adolfo de Paiva Foundation. Okay, now we are done.
Boa tarde, gente.
So good afternoon, you all. Good afternoon. I'm not sure if I say that I'm happy to be here because Dr. Carlos Gadelha, he was supposed to be here. However, this disaster in the Rio Grande do Sul state, the entities are all mobilized to support them. So I'm here, filling in the gap of Carlos Gadelha's gap. I'm not going to talk about the same subject, but I'm going to talk about this industrial complex, economic and industrial complex in healthcare, and that is a consequence of the needs of the country to have scientific, technological, and manufacturing of inputs that are essential for healthcare. We had always leaps in the science, especially in technology, in each disaster that we had in the country. So the epidemics that we had in the state of Rio de Janeiro, of yellow fever, varioles, and bubonic pest made the government create the Federal Soterápico Institute. And this was created due to the pandemics. And Oswaldo Cruz himself made a tripod institution where you have the research, development, and the learning. Actually, it had 4 pods and also the manufacturing. And more recently, with the multinational that left, and with biological products for the Ministry of Health, the DTP, when they asked them to improve the quality, this laboratory just canceled its activity and left the country without any supply, without anti-ophidic serum. And so in the campaign, this was demonstrated in the beginning of the century that the viper venom is very specific in the production. And so we could not import this serum. So we created a self-sufficient production of this anti-serum. So the government supported the laboratories that produce these serums and then the vaccines. And for 10 years, there was a support of $100 million during 10 years that make possible the modernization of Butantan's Institute, Bio-Manguinhos, and these laboratories were able to leave the obsolescence aspect that they had. So others, and I want to say that there were dozens of laboratories producing rabi vaccines, but without the due quality. That was when the Ministry of Health in the 80s squeezed the quality assurance and then created the ENCQS, and Brazil adopted then in its program double system for quality assurance in vaccines. So in addition to the quality control and the manufacturing, they also carried out in this double system of quality assurance in each batch to verify the quality of the vaccines that the immunization program in Brazil used. So in each epidemic, in the meningitis epidemic And in the 70s, in the beginning of the 70s, brought the reorganization of the Oswaldo Cruz Foundation. So the Ministry of Health, the federal government considered in its government program the recovery of Oswaldo Cruz Foundation as a method in modernizing much needed modernization when we had the vaccination against meningitis. We also had the technology for the manufacturing of this vaccine locally. So since then, we produced this vaccine, and at each epidemic, we have improvements that the government has sees. So the pandemic brought another, I wouldn't say improvement, but an evidence. It showed a very clear evidence of the dependence, national dependence on everything. And when I'm say everything, I'll say that for us to produce a vaccine in the country, we import 90% of the inputs of the materials used in the production. So it's a very high dependence in the import of materials. So we depend on the equipment and imports for the laboratories because we do not have the manufacturing of equipment that can be certified and approved in the best practice of manufacturing. So this dependence, this huge dependence was very explicit, not only for the inputs, but also for equipment and also for other healthcare products. So I think that this economic complex is right in attacking these issues that we have in the country. However, it is necessary to have a program supported by the government together with the laboratories in the country, public and private laboratories, to mitigate this immense dependence on technology of inputs and equipment and among others. So I would like to say something in this aspect so that we can bring some light to this discussion, as the program says how to get the maturity, how to achieve the maturity. Because I think that we're a little bit distant from maturity, but how to achieve it, and also to achieve self-sufficiency. So I'll try to answer these questions, and I would start with our director from the Butantan Institute. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Akira. Just to say that we have here essential personality in Brazil for the development of our industrial complex. Is an honor to be here by your side, and what you have done in Rio de Janeiro and our colleagues in the Butantan Institute in the development of vaccination is very admiring, and you are an example for the challenges that we have further in the future. So I would start saying, just to make a remark, a very quick remark, and then we can open for discussion. But I would like to make a diagnosis of the situation, because recently a group of ours in Butantan went through a trip and visiting colleagues that create immunobiologicals in China, India, and we had opportunities in the US, Europe, since we have taken over the institute in the beginning of last year. The Brazilian model is very different. Because we historically went through a pathway that is a mixed pathway. If we see what happened in the US and the Europe, the immunobiological industry is much more driven towards the private sector, and there's a component of the participation of open capital companies that are part of this environment. When you go to China, it's the opposite. A great part is on public companies.
With a force and a vigor that's extraordinary in the scum line of production. India, too, is a country that has a huge amount of companies. If you look at the number of doses, they're responsible for a large proportion of the doses of immunobiologicals around the world. And there are companies, private companies, and most of them are closed companies, listed companies, groups, and even families that take care of these companies. They're not listed companies, they're family-owned companies. They got to a very large volume of cheap doses. Brazil has a mixed system that's very curious, what we have adopted here in the country. The first thing that draws my attention to is that most vaccines produced in Brazil are produced by two public institutes. And they receive support from private institutions that were constituted throughout the years. And that ended up creating a model that is very different from the other ones. And we navigate through this environment in a way that's quite peculiar. And one of the things that drew my attention is that the pharmaceutical industry in Brazil has grown exponentially. What we have done, what private companies did in the development of generic medications, for example, that's extraordinary, the breakthroughs we reached. But curiously, there are no private companies in the country dedicated to the development and production and development of vaccines today. And I think that most of it is because the environment that was created, especially by the two public institutions in Brazil through the production of vaccines, using the purchasing power of the Brazilian state, allowed us to absorb part of these technologies within us. Is that the best model that we've been engaged in the past? Well, there are mixed opinions. People congratulate us on the model, and I'm one of them, but it's one of the strengths that we have to force, to engage in our capacity to grow, to use this environment that was created in all these years to incorporate as many technologies as possible in Brazil, create a critical mass of people that work on innovation and discovery of new products, development and implementation of production platforms, which is what we'll bring to Brazil and install capacity, as the name itself indicates, to incorporate self-sufficiency. We will be totally independent in the production of immunobiologicals. That's virtually impossible because we look at the world. There's no country that's perfectly independent, totally independent. Many of them, as rich as they are, depend, be it on the critical mass or inputs or equipment or productive capacity. We live obviously in this on this model that that's quite permeable in the world. There was the COVID-19 shock that called into question this whole supply chain that forced us to develop even local options. But there is a high interdependence around the world in terms of production. We must appreciate it. We must envision it and smartly, because you have to see the ways in which we can minimize the impact that these barriers can impose upon us. The Butantan Institute has been working strongly in the absorption of these new technologies. We try to incorporate new factories. We migrate to systems, the factory systems that are flexible to absorb different products, because we know that the needs are volatile. They depend not only on the capacities that we'll be acquiring for vaccine coverage, going from a initial campaign to coverage campaigns for vaccinations, and to navigate the world of epidemics and pandemics. That's why we have migrated to this kind of platform, which allows us to adapt absorb new technologies, but also engenders flexibility within our own space of activity. And also, to open up for debate among our colleagues, we are facing a wide range of investments in national development, internal national development of new technologies. That's something we take a great deal of pride in. We keep investing in it. And it's a question of honor for our institute to be able to bring products to the portfolio or to the menu, if you will, of options, the menu of choices on our system, of health system, be it collective public health system or the complementary private health system. But primarily the basic mission is to work on discoveries within the country, inside the country. We could be talking about these things the whole day. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Thanks for the invitation. And we congratulate our brethren of Fiocruz, which developed that effort to put this symposium together here in Rio de Janeiro and to celebrate here and to say that we are very proud. And this beginning of this year, we have signed our strategic alliance, Butantan Fiocruz, to reinforce our capacity to produce immunobiological products. Thank you. Certainly, we will have questions, but let's leave them out till the end. And after all the presentations have been made, we'll open up for Q&A. Dr. Odilon, you have the floor. Please, sir, you have the floor. What would I have? What will I say? I have my cheat notes. I might get confused. I might get tied up. They gave me this lectern, this podium. I have my cheat notes. Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'd like to thank the as the president of Abifina, I got the invitation. Thank you very much for inviting me. I heard some food for thought in the hallways of this event. I have known you for a long time, don't get me wrong, but I got some provocations around, talk about this, talk about that. Where's Odilon? I'm not going to leave this place if you don't touch upon this topic or that topic. Over lunch, someone said, look, you have to go this way or that way. You really have to tackle these important issues. I'm going to try to bring to your attention, a reflection about the topic of the industrial complex and the health field, in the health arena. I will start off by saying two things. I am a market person. My training is on market affairs, but I'd like to start off by talking about the Unified Health Public Health System, SUS. Market people, financial people don't have a close view, a very neat view of this public health system. We work in retail and hospitals, and we're market people, but this country has, and it's some stock of assets, something fantastic, which is SUS, public health system that provides access to any programs. Vaccination is one of them. AIDS is also another important area. Those with less income are eligible for the public health system. And when we talk about the public health system, we talk about access. These are two things that are absolutely intertwined. They come together, actually. And this industrial complex and the health industrial complex that's out there reminds me of Milor Fernandes in a book, the Inside Out of Life. It's all said and done. Everything has been said, and almost nothing has been done. It's the inside out part of life. This speech has come from a long time ago. This narrative has come from a long time ago, and I'm going to go back to the federal constitution signed in 1988. And it's chapter 4, Science, Technology, and Innovation. And Article 2018-2019, for those who haven't read it yet, it's written right there, something that goes like something like this. Number one, the internal market, everything that you buy and sell that makes up our GDP is the stock. It's a national stock. It's part of the national stock. It's written in the Constitution, and it's a national treasure. And part of that of national treasure, it is part and parcel of the growth effort towards growing, increasing the industrial park, if you will, whatever category it falls into within the country, inside the country, with local production, generating local jobs, local employment. And there's something called purchasing power by the state, procurement power by the state. And this procurement power by the state is what, in a way, some way or the other, it nourishes the question of the industrial complex geared to health. There is an interesting collection of stakeholders in that market, that it is something potent and large. We cannot talk about the unified public health system without talking about something big, because the SUS is something huge. No country in the world with over 100 million people has that model of the unified public health system as Brazil does. No other country as large as Brazil, as populated as Brazil, has a unified public health system like we do. We must look inside, and we must turn our look towards the public health system with no political connotations involved in this. And the spiel I'm giving you, I'm going to read to you a quote from the speech by President Lula in Pernambuco recently in April, where he launched Hemobras. I think you have an idea that happened. They launched Hemobras, and President says something like this: if we Brazilians who want a sovereign country, who want a country capable of having a health industry, because we have a consuming agency, which is a consumer agency, which is the public health system, we must believe that we may have a health industrial complex to compete with any other country in the world, as rich as it may be. And that is the core, that is at the DNA of this health industrial complex. Recently, we put together a Industrial Development National Council under the leadership of the Vice President Geraldo Alckmin. Inside, they created a so-called NEB, New Brazilian Industries, NIB, and what we're postulating at this time, and as provocation to Professor Akira, has to do mostly with the production of inputs, pharmaceutical inputs. Actually, at COVID, Brazil find out what IFA was. Nobody knew what it was before COVID. And then Brazil began to talk IFA. Nobody knew exactly what it meant, but everybody knew that something called IFA did exist. And we have a small production of IFAs in Brazil. It's about 10% of our requirements, of our demand, but we import 90% of our pharmaceutical inputs, 90% almost the finished products as well. It's a food for thought, actually. It's a reflection provoked by Genève. Professor Akira said, and I was quite concerned, I was sitting right there, and when you said that we need to reach the maturity of in this process, you said it yourself. I'm 80 years old. I said, look, where am I going? If I haven't reached maturity, where am I going? I'm 80 years old. And I just turned 80, and I still have to reach maturity. Jesus, that's something to think of. You know, I'm going to get there, Professor Akira, together with you. We're going to get there together. We're going to walk hand in hand towards maturity, Professor Akira. No, the provocation by Odilon is that we need to have something more palpable, tangible, something we can get our hands on. He was provoking me, saying, look, you must talk about, it's not enough to have a government policy, we need to have a state policy. Enough of government policies. We got to have a state policy. For me, it's great. I don't know about you, but I'm going to say it anyway. in industry and in the government itself and public industries, the entrepreneurs and leaders are the same. For a long time, they've been the same. In the national industry, for example, the owners are 40, 50 years old, actually 40, 50 years of experience and working at the companies they've been working at. It's funny that our politicians are the same throughout time. Also, they have remained the same for centuries, actually, for decades. But the government leaders have changed. The politicians are the same, but those who govern are not. The executive branch changes every so often. And since they change every so often, every time they change, everything else changes. And we just went through recently something. For example, we just had a problem of funding that changed from one government to another. And then it's not a state policy, it's a government policy, and we have to start all over again. And like Laura Fernandes said, everything was said and nothing was done. What about new industrial policy in Brazil? It's not new, it's old. It's the old industry. The title, the acronym is new, but there's nothing really new to it. So we absolutely need to have, that Professor Kira's provocation is that me as the president of Abifina will have to do whatever I can to cater. The pressure was out there. He put it to me. He threw the ball at me. He said, look, Odilon, you got to do something. Something must happen. He was talking about IFAs, the local production of IFAs, medical inputs. We import 90% and we produce something 10%. So I want to conclude my remarks, but also there is your provocation that I'm going to have to cater to respond to. Policies. It's a slight touch. Funny, Magalhães Pinto, former governor of Minas Gerais, said, look, politics is like a cloud. It's like a cloud. You look at it now, it looks like something. You look at it again, a couple of minutes later, it changed completely. That's how fast it changes. You watch the last news at midnight, right before midnight. At 6 a.m., you get up and watch the first news report in the early morning and everything changed. That's how things operate. Things change overnight in Brazil. From the midnight news report till the 6 a.m. news report, everything changes. So we have to, we have to have a predictable, sustainable policy because nobody invests, nobody puts money in anything unless it's something that will meant to be sold or it will be meant to ensure a purchase on the strength of the procurement power of the state. Nobody throws money away to build something that will be there rotting away with no use whatsoever. As for the industrial health complex, recently we've had a public inquiry, 53, 54. Some of you might know what I'm talking about, a public inquiry concerning a new industrial policy that I imagined Professor Gadelha, if he were here now, he could say something about that new policy. But you come up with a public inquiry, you take part in it, you make suggestions, opinions, you give everything, but it will only be valid when it's published in the official Gazette. When you're going to have a new policy, we're waiting for the publication of this new policy on the official Gazette. As for this thing called public-private partnerships, PPP, the reflection I'd like to put to you, the food for thought I'd like to give you, that's a belief. It's only a belief. There are some converted. Some people have been converted, quite a few actually, I would say. There are many critics that are ferocious. But I do have the hope that this learning curve is taking place as we speak, frequently enough, and it's growing, it's increasing, it's on the ascending, on an ascending line, and soon enough we'll have a greater adherence or adhesion to this idea of a PPP, public-private partnership. Professor Kira provoked me into saying, look, I am a bit bashful when it comes to, I'm here as the vice president of the Cristales as well, of Cristales. You provoked me into talking briefly about two things. Can I say it? with your permission. Now, under his permission, I will tell you two things. Cristal is a national laboratory, 52 years old, in Itabira, countryside of São Paulo state, and it is a complex, industrial complex for health, geared to health. Our park, we have a pharmaceutical company, and yet another pharmaceutical company, a pharmacochemical, an oncological pharmacochemical plant, a biotechnological plant. One of the idealizers and founders is sitting right there.
And this complex that we have there along the time specialize in anesthesiology and anesthesia. And what happened is that we have all the kits for intubation, oral tracheal intubation, and with the COVID pandemics, we had to have the respirators and this incubation, and could only be done with the anesthesia and the muscle relaxants. And one laboratory manufactures this in the country in a vertical model from the first raw material, this line of anesthesics. And the Emergency Medical Association adopted this proceedings regarding anesthesiology in order to carry out oral tracheal proceedings, and we made 4 million units per month, and we start doing with COVID, with the heated demand, 20 million units, and this capacity was expanded for that. So I would say, without a fear of making mistakes, I'm talking about even the finished product coming from Itapira. During COVID, Brazil saved Brazil. And why did this happen? Because the world was closed. The world closed in itself, and they saved everything to itself. No exportation was happening. We did not import anything. They were not exporting anything. And what was manufactured here was consumed here because they had the... And if it wasn't for Cristália laboratories, and I'm saying this for those who do not know, Brazil saved Brazil. And since I'm in this symposium on immunobiologicals, the last news here too, because they're signaling that I'm out of time, running out of time. He's very discreet. He's tapping his foot. See? Can you see it? So we carried out in our biotechnology, we developed a product called growth hormone, hematropin. So this hematropin is a public partnership with Bio-Manguinhos. And both of us have the same hairdo. I don't know why. So it's a coincidence. And this somatropine and gives to the country and the self-sufficiency in the growth hormone. With this partnership, no international unit was important, and we are serving this market with something to 600 millions of units per year. So I'm going to close saying that Milor Fernandes, and we keep on saying we have to keep on doing. So we have this challenge in IFA, and also at Abifina, I'm talking to BNDES, the development bank. I'm talking to Vice President Geraldo Alckmin, and also with Wallace from Medici, so that we can truly have a policy that make the IFA production true so that we can have self-sufficiency. And this is constitutional. As I opened my talk, and it was there in chapter 4 and the article, and I will complete my speech here, and I invite you to reflect upon it, and I thank you very much.
Obrigado. Deve ter muitas perguntas, mas vamos deixar para depois, tá bom? Ok? Então, Artur, você... você está do lado errado. Aqui. Tá, viu? Melhor me dar o teu mesmo. Bom, boa tarde a todos.
Okay, good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for the invitation, Dr. Akito, and the coordination of Easy to be able to be part of this table, debating with my colleagues. And just to say that I received many feedbacks upon my arrival here, a little bit different from yours. People said, oh, refrain from what you're going to talk. Don't speak everything that crosses your mind. So I came to the conclusion, because I'm very much critic regarding the scenario, but there are constructive critiques, and I do have some critiques regarding the industrial complex on health, and it starts with the self-sufficiency program. And I could say, Odilon, that in the 80s, we had 98% of the vaccine production was made in Brazil, the manufacturing. 98%, of course, the portfolio was much smaller, but we had a logic of introduction of new vaccines, and we had a clear support from the government saying that only introduction of vaccines in PNI through this partnership with private and public laboratories. And we did growth during that period. And of course, along the time, some of the public laboratories ended closing up, and some of them were able to develop more initiatives. So people could ask that, why did not these laboratories not grow? And we have some questions for that, some answer for that. And some of them is that the state laboratories, with the exception of Butantan, they suffer with the government changes. So you have the shifts in the government to change the team and the leaderships. And another thing is the national politics has peaks and valleys. So when you have this strong policy, you can keep, and the laboratories are more able to fixate their actions. Other thing is the IFA production in Brazil. However, it's behind something called technology. It's no point in talking about IFA. We're talking about technology transfer and innovative products, and this requires funding. You have to have a strategy behind this. And we listen daily that we have to be careful with TCU, and because we can't buy everything in the national market. I'm talking about the industrial healthcare complex. And what are you talking is that what brings to the development of the economy in Brazil? It's important to have a national production, because we are generating knowledge, employment, and we're preparing because we can prepare the products here. This industry did not grow due to IFA's presence. On the contrary, and we have a great pharmaceutical and complex here. And we had an evolution during the years, and with the PPPs brought to Brazil a possibility of expansion of the manufacturing laboratories, private and public. And once more, we made mistakes in the idea and in the execution, because we thought that the government owned laboratories could make anything. And then we said that they were incompetent and could not make this. So we have to reflect on this, because why do we accept things that we know they're not going to work? So this is a great problem that we have. So we're going to reflect on this, and who was the coordinator of these ideas are not the laboratories. Is the current government, the government in office, is the one who says that what is important, and they have to carry out a previous assessment, so that because they cannot develop it, because they never done this before. The first round of PPPs in the Gadelha's office administration, we had laboratories of pharmacochemistry that have never treated biological, and they presented proposals for this production. So the chance was zero, and how many laboratories could keep on working, because they only Manguinhos and some other, because they had this experience and they left the vaccine and they went to the pharmaceutical, but from the chemistry to the biopharmaceutical, it is a big step, and they were not able to reach this, to accomplish this. And they said this policy is not right. So we're repeating the same thing. We have lists of new products without knowing who is going to manufacture this. So we should select everything to Bio-Manguinhos and Butantan Institute. We should put the products, the new products, the biopharma, for both, because they do not have the condition to present other public laboratories to be part of it. And why they should be part of it, it's another failure in the process, because they establish who make this partnership and who has access to the market are the public laboratory, the government-owned laboratories. They have to do this through the government-owned laboratories. And you have private companies who are going to present serious proposals to transfer knowledge, and you have those who just want to access the public market, and they're going to make a partnership knowing that they're not going to produce anything in that laboratory. So this is a failure that has to be corrected. So it's important to understand that it's much better to produce in Brazil from an IFA than depending on the international market. We started last year to producing in Bio-Manguinhos many vaccines in our portfolios, but the transfer of technology to come to IFA was very much relevant. We brought knowledge that we did not have, and we learned greatly with these companies, the private companies, and with time we can learn even more. But the fact that we are producing in Brazil, you're improving the whole productive chain, and you're bringing to Brazil funding, employment, knowledge, things that we did not have in the past. And we are possible with to have people now with specific knowledge in Brazil. We had to train them in the past. So we have graduation programs, post-graduation programs, and we do not even have university training people to work in biological productions. So with this, you can bring the manufacturing in national level, you're bringing knowledge and you're generating knowledge within the country. And we hear many of the times and people criticizing and talking about having a competition process, and no, we should keep this in Brazil. I don't need to generate knowledge abroad. If you have COVID, you can see how much resource was sent abroad and how much stayed in Brazil. I think I frightened them with my speech. I promise that I'm going to stop criticizing everything. I think it was Dr. Akira's foot was something that he threw, so I stopped talking about it. But I think that during the pandemic, it was a very clear example. Many much employment were generated out abroad. So, but we hired many people, and the resources went abroad, and not in there. It's not in Brazil. We are building a new plant now to improve the capacity in Brazil, capability in Brazil, and of course our focus is going to be IFA. But we are working to improve the production of IFA, and as if it's a finished product. But in the pandemic, we saw that it lacked the final capacity because the laboratories did not have the capability to process the IFAs. So we had to seek worldwide those who could manufacture this. So this is important. It's not sufficient. It's not enough. We have to have the national production, but for that we have to generate the knowledge here. It's not the IFA that you're going to bring from abroad. It's how to produce the IFA through innovation in Brazil. This is the issue. How much do you invest in this in Brazil? Nothing. If you take the data from the great pharmaceutical companies, they invest 7 to 10% from their gross revenue. And those who invest in research and development, they are investing a few billions. And if you take Brazil, I'm not talking about the pharmaceuticals, we're talking about 10 million invested. I'm sorry, 1 billion invested and 10 billions executed in 2021. Okay, who invests? Those who invest this volume of resources cannot expect anything from that. So we need more funding, we need more resources, and there is none. So I think that we have many challenges, Dr. Akira, and we need to reach the maturity. However, maturity as well of our leaders, our managers, who are in the end of the process, implementing the policies and generating the policies, not only talk about the policies, but not to be afraid of doing this from a natural entity standpoint, because sometimes I hear people saying that I'm concerned with the control bodies. Are you concerned with the country or the control agencies? So you should only have to answer to the agencies. However, this end up impacting our development and the difficulties that we have to leverage the national manufacturing. I'm going to wrap up here because I do not want to have another bottle thrown on me. Okay, so the last one is better, right, Dr. Atira? So good afternoon. I would like to congratulate the initiatives and the Fiocruz and Bio-Manguinhos for the event. We have this on the calendar in the biotechnology field, and I'm representing the ALFOB president, who is Jorge Mendonça, and he's the president of Manguinhos, and he was not able to be here, unfortunately, but I'm the executive secretariat at ALFOB, and my boss is right here next to me. And I think that is important to say, and many do not know the ALFOB, which is the Association of Public Laboratories for pharmaceutical use, and we have 40 years old, and we have many associate laboratories, and 3 are the Armed Forces Laboratory, 2 from the Ministry of Health, Manguinhos and Bio-Manguinhos, and the state laboratories, as Artur mentioned, Ezequiel Dias in Minas Gerais, and Butantan in São Paulo, another one in Pernambuco, AFUR in São Paulo, TecPar in Paraná, and many other state laboratories linked to universities like Lutz in Paraíba, another one in Rio Grande do Norte state. So we have a diversity, legal and administration diversity of laboratories. You have federal, state, and municipal laboratories, many connected to the defense ministry and armed forces. So you have several types of entities. And when we talk about this subject, we're talking about politics of a right of establishing an order, national order to foster the national industry in self-sufficiency and its challenges, and for its maturity in the production of pharmaceutical inputs and also for pharmaceutical products.
Sejam de origem biológica e sintética e também produtos para a saúde. Então nós temos associado na ALFOB que trabalha com órtese e prótese.
So we're working with prostheses and other public and health products. That's the way that wide gamut of products. Our cure has talked about our origins. If we are to think it's 100 years old, a Butantan, Fiocruz, Ezequiel Diaz Vital, Brazil. These are laboratories that have been in operation for 100 years. And it's the Brazilian vanguard in the operation of serums and vaccines ever since last century. So the presence of the public laboratories and the public health system in Brazil is centuries old. And our responsibility that we have as a country is centuries old as well. So we have this network that, in addition to offering that, it also works on research and development. Arthur mentioned, right, the question of the teaching, graduate studies. Some of our laboratories have that possibility as well. That's very important. We have continuing education extension services to our population. The Museum of Life at Fiocruz, Butantan has a museum. FUNAP is science and movement that does work with the community. But what we need in Brazil and what we have seen over a century in operation is that the participation of public laboratories has been effective, and they're the ones who actually held a sway. But we're one of the few countries in the world that we have a network like that in our hands with those features, those characteristics to produce vaccines, produce serum and synthetic products and reagents and research and development. Overall, we're over 8,500 professionals, and we have 600 people with a master's and 500 people with a PhD in the public laboratory network. Very few people know that, but effectively, we have effective participation in Brazilian society. So I always look at the glass half full, because the half empty glass, working as a network, it needs to, and then Odilon, if you will allow me, we need a state policy to back us up. When we talk about a state policy, we need a framework, a legal framework with federal rules and regulations that characterize this network. Because so far, our network is not marked by, it is not guided by any federal legislation. These are government initiatives through ministerial decrees or administrative decrees that cater to the needs of this public laboratory system. The strength of Bio-Manguinhos and Butantan has to do with a state policy. They are what they are today, and they have grown and prevailed, and they have a line of investments because we have a national immunization program created back in the 70s that has been in operation for over 50 years, and it comes from the federal government, and it has trespassed public health, and Odilon, it has been reinforced by the public health system, SUS. If it's a state policy, it is assured of financing and a budget, and as a state policy backing it up. So the question of having this network of ours and the question of tech trends and incorporating technology in this network of laboratories, you need what? You need a legal framework that will ensure that we will strengthen our sovereignty, taking on a certain degree of self-sufficiency that we want to have, and the platforms, technological platforms that we'll be working on, so that what Arthur said won't take place at the origin of this policy, because the complex industrial policy comes from 2008 and has grown through administrative decrees, ministry decrees. So there is a legal frailty to it. There's a legal weakness, because ministerial decrees, if I'm a new government, I will turn it down immediately, and there will be a new decree, or I'll just suppress it, I'll call it off. Then the policy is no longer in operation. So we are at the mercy of the governments at hand. So there's no sustainability in the Brazilian state. This current government with neo-industry and new industrial policy, it doesn't matter. What matters to us is that we'll be bringing assurances to this public network of laboratories, so that they'll be working through partnerships with the private sector in sustainable ways, because public laboratories won't take up the role of the private sector. It's quite the opposite. They must establish niches within pre-established platforms, and the rules and regulations that the Brazilian federal government will outline for society. What we're waiting for within that industrial policy, complex policy, we're waiting for decrees published last year, and with the decrees, 2 of them are under public consultation. The Productive Development Decree, which is the new decree to regulate PDPs, as Arthur said, and it means that what's a PDP? It's a public laboratory together with a private partner, be it national or foreign or multinational, to develop strategic products that will be incorporated into the public health system. The list of the public health system that is part of the list of essential medications as established by the federal government, whether biofarms and vaccines or synthetic products. This network of public laboratories, 100% of the anti-poison serums are produced by these laboratories. Over 50% of the AIDS retroviral products are produced by these laboratories. Over 80% of the UPNE vaccines are produced by this network. Most of the reagents are produced by this network of laboratories. So the role of these laboratories, the role they perform in Brazilian society is quite significant. What we must do, the challenge of the government is to turn that into a state policy that's ongoing and permanent. And that's, we must ensure, and that's where it's under discussion within the Association of Laboratories. We must have a legal framework, federal legal framework, that will provide guidelines towards the normatization of these laboratories in order to avoid interferences from other agencies, like accounts courts, and when the accounts departments of the government, for example, they slap Arthur with lawsuits, for example. Why? Because there is a political weakness within ministerial decrees that rule over the policy. So the challenge that we have on the table, and just to wrap up my remarks, the challenge we have on the table for public laboratories in Brazil is we must ensure that the glass half full. It's what we've been doing, and we've been doing a great job of it. What Bio-Manguinhos and Butantan stand for in Brazilian society at the vanguard is something exceptional. It imbues us with pride and infuses us with pride. And the laboratory of the state of Pernambuco, which has internalized synthetic pills for schizophrenia, it's a source of pride for all of us in Brazil. We're very proud of it. We still have a public health system based on synthetic products that finds itself, I would say, obsolete. It's an obsolescence, and it's unproductive, because most of that network has to deal with certification issues. The challenge facing these public laboratories, Arthur said once, he said in a talk of his, we're looked at as a multinational corporation by Anvisa, but when we sell our products, we must sell them at prices of African countries to the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health sees us as a multinational corporation, but we must sell our products at very cheap prices, African prices. So this is a world problem within regulatory agencies, Anvisa, FDA, in the US, European agency, Canadian agency, Australian agency, Japanese agency, it doesn't matter. The public laboratories must cater to all of these issues and must juggle all these requirements. And the cutting edge that we're walking on, the tightrope we're walking on, is that we cater to national public health issues, which is the goal that we have in front of us, but also we must cater also to the regulations set by Anvisa. All of these things under a bidding, a procurement law that doesn't understand the strategic role that these laboratories play in research and development in Brazil. So one of the issues that we're faced with, one of our challenges, so that within the industrial health complex policy is to establish an official network of Brazilian laboratories. It requires a federal legislative framework that contemplates the features of this network. The network doesn't want privileges, but it needs to work under a certain set of guidelines for the benefit of the Brazilian population. Thank you. Our time is over, but perhaps 2 or 3 questions, if we could ask them in a pithy way. Could we entertain 2 or 3 questions? Good afternoon, everyone. Very quick. João Paulo, Oswald Cruz Institution and CNPq researcher. Congratulations to Odilon, Esper, Artur, and Luis. In reality, I think that Odilon hit the nail on the head. The question today in Brazil, we have human resources that are qualified, extremely competent. We have a large number of, high number of young researchers with high competency, but we need a state policy so that we may, without a fine chemical industry, cutting edge industry, we won't be able to make any breakthroughs. I was talking to Zoom over lunch about this topic. See, our public here, our audience here, unfortunately, I am included in this because we're wrong. Because we should have in the audience the former presidents of the Republic, the future candidates for presidency of the Republic, the former governors and future governors, state governors. These are the people that make the necessary decisions. So Akira, you started talking about our patron, Oswald Cruz. My proposal is that this talk will be taken to the current president of the Republic and the future candidates for president of the Republic, that they should be coming up with a research and development, innovation and production state policy, a state policy geared to all these important issues. One more question and then we'll that's it. We'll call it a day for the time being, at least. So, all right, no more questions. Thank you. I do thank you very much. I would like to thank all the participants on the line, Esper and Artur, Luis, for this great panel. I think you left out more questions and answers, but it's important to have this exchange of ideas. The right questions, that's food for thought for later debates. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Kira. Thank you to our panelists and speakers. Thank you for participating in our panel.
Bem, gente, vamos dar
Well, folks, we will start our next block of presentations, the posters. Thank you, Professor Kira. Poster presentation. We will invite on stage Everton Alves Portela dos Santos to present his poster, Safety and reactogenicity of COVID-19. Recombinant vaccine doses, and for age 12 weeks or 8 or 12-week intervals between the first two doses. I'd like your attention, please. Could you raise the volume of my microphone, please? Please, I know some of you need to go away, need to go back to go back home, but we must actually pay attention to the presentation of the posters. These are important studies that have been made. Even though some people do have to leave, I'd like your attention if possible. Once again, your consideration, please. Your attention, if you could. Let's pay due attention to our speaker's presentation. Everton, you have the floor. How do you how do you work this? How do you make this work? Thank you. This way? Good afternoon. My name is Everton Alves Portela dos Santos. I'm a medical scientific production analyst, at BM. And today I'll present to you a safety study on doses for COVID-19, recombinant COVID-19 vaccine administered and for 12-week intervals in between the first two doses. Initially, it's important to restate that vaccinations is one of the best medical approaches to curtail the dissemination of infectious diseases, and we may observe, for example, a reduction Where is it? Well, we may observe a reduction in the number of cases of smallpox after the start of vaccination and polio, which was eradicated in many countries. As for the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines, that was no different because they reduced significantly the number of deaths and they contributed, therefore, to the end of the pandemic. However, many countries have low vaccine coverage, like in Africa and Latin America. Also, it's important to bring to your attention the impact of the pandemic on the world, where over 775 million cases were recorded. Many of these cases were reported over the past 7 days, and those are the most the latest data. We can see that SARS-CoV-2 is still a virus that's circulating on a global level, on a global scale, taking into consideration that many countries with low vaccine coverage, the virus is circulating, and the Markov and collaborators and studies that say that depending on the viral circulation, it might be necessary to declare a new health emergency. So knowing this is quite relevant to know exactly what we're dealing with. The goal of the study is to follow up on the heterogeneity of 3 doses of the COVID-19 administered in intervals of 4, 8, or 12 weeks in between the first 2 doses. The study was a clinical case of phase 4, open, randomized, multicentric, and it's here they've been recorded by the participants themselves within 7 days after vaccination for each one of the doses. Still, they recorded all the adverse events that were not requested. Actually, the analysis in our study was the intention of treatment, and the criterion adopted was that all participants that were vaccinated at least with 1 safety follow-up were included. As a result, 1,258 people were included, 3 research centers in Rio de Janeiro, Paraná, and they were distributed in 3 groups, and they were defined by the interval between the first 2 doses for 8 and 12 weeks. Data, 1,258 participants were canvassed, and we ascertained the effects of the vaccine. We have noticed that the event that's most frequently mentioned was local pain and the vaccination, followed by sensitivity to touch, headaches, muscle pain, and sleepiness. These 5 events were repeated after the second and third doses, with a change in frequency for sleepiness and muscle pain. We have noticed also that the frequency of these events doesn't seem to be very different in between the groups, and the frequency also, it's reduced as per the evolution of the doses, notwithstanding the fact that these adverse effects don't put the lives of these patients at risk. We have to understand the time of duration of these events and how much they could affect the day-to-day activities of participants. On this table, we show the time of duration of 10 adverse events most frequently requested.
So, with the exception of the pain in the shot spot, we had the same event for the 3 doses ended before 3 days after the vaccination. And duration also decreases with the shot, and we can see the duration is not very different amongst the groups, and they're common with the 3 doses. Still, the participants were oriented to classify these adverse effects with light, mild, moderate, and complex, and we can observe that approximately 40 to 50% of the events were considered as light, mild, and 62% were classified as light to moderated, independently of the dosage and the interval where it was applied. Finally, we evaluated the amount of participants that needed medical aid to solve an adverse effect, either solicited or not, and the complexity of these cases. And we observed that after the second dose, there was a reduction of 20%, and after the third dose, 40%, and these demands comparing to the first dose. And we also saw that less than 12.5% had not had emergency medical care. And it's important to see that the hospitalization or after the second dose, the first dose and second dose did not had an association with the vaccine, and we did not have also any hospitalization in ICUs or VITT. So we can conclude that the safety and reactogenicity
terminaram em pouco tempo, independente se a vacina foi administrada no intervalo de 4, 8 ou 12 semanas entre as 2 primeiras doses. Agradeço à comissão científica pela escolha do trabalho para apresentação, à comissão organizadora, toda a equipe do DEAME pela dedicação nesse projeto e ainda à Secretaria Municipal de Saúde do Rio de Janeiro, o TECPAR e ao ERJ. Muito obrigado, gente.
Obrigada, Everton, e parabéns pela sua apresentação. Muito obrigada. Eu queria convidar agora ao palco para apresentar o próximo pôster a Thaís Pereira Catão. O pôster é Building a Health Future, Health Needs and Technological Horizons in Immunobiologicals.
Boa tarde, eu sou Thaís Catão, sou farmacêutica de Bio-Manguinhos, do Departamento de Assuntos Médicos. Esse trabalho é em colaboração com a Inteligência Competitiva de Bio-Manguinhos, e eu tenho muita honra e muito entusiasmo em apresentá-lo, porque é um trabalho inovador para a saúde pública. O acesso à saúde ele apresenta diversas dimensões. E a dimensão a ser abordada nesse trabalho é da capacidade do Estado em identificar quais são as necessidades em saúde, em tratamento, prevenção e diagnóstico. Esse trabalho, além de identificar essas necessidades, ele visa entender quais são as prioridades. Então, ele começa com uma pergunta que ela é muito simples, mas ela é muito profunda. Como é que nós podemos priorizar as necessidades em saúde para garantir o acesso e enfrentar os desafios que não foram atendidos ainda? O objetivo primário desse trabalho é incentivar a inovação e a colaboração com diversos outros atores que são atores da assistência da ponta do SUS, para a gente poder entender quais são as demandas e as necessidades deles. E aí, Bio-Manguinhos, né, trabalha com vacinas, biofarmacêuticos, kits diagnósticos e atuamos muito na área de inovação. O objetivo dessa apresentação foi identificar em diversos horizontes, né, em curto, médio e longo prazo. O curto prazo seria de até 5 anos, o médio prazo de 5 a 10 anos e longo prazo acima de 10 anos. Quais seriam essas necessidades? Quais seriam as demandas que a gente teria que atender e que a ponta nos demandaria? Por isso que Bio-Manguinhos realizou e entrou numa imersão para poder rever o seu roadmap, que é o portfólio dos produtos que nós fornecemos, que nós produzimos. E essa revisão de roadmap ela ocorre em várias camadas. A gente aqui vai focar na primeira camada dessa revisão de roadmap, que é uma camada onde a gente busca identificar quais são as tendências de demandas. O que é que vai vir para o futuro, né? O que é que vai vir a curto prazo? O que é que vai vir a médio prazo? O que é que vai vir a longo prazo? O que é que a ponta está falando para a gente? E aqui a gente vai trazer os resultados preliminares dessa análise. Bom, foram feitos workshops com diversos líderes científicos de diversas especialidades, foram 10 especialidades médicas, líderes científicos e profissionais da assistência que trabalham, de fato, no SUS. Adicionalmente, nós consultamos dados epidemiológicos, nós fizemos uma coleta de dados do Global Burden of Disease, que é um estudo...
The Global Burden of Disease that has a global and many other indicators, and we summed the specialties with these epidemiological data. We have this primary outcome, and we're going to focus on the workshops, and I'm going to bring what we had of demand. So the specialties were these: pneumonology, infectious disease, oncology, hematology, gastroenterology, and the short term is 5 years, average is 5 to 10, and long term is over 10 years. So we identified diagnostic and treatment and prevention. So the outcomes were multiples. We had more than 1,000 demands were attended, and most of them were biotechnology, 65%, and we had other demands of other natures for chemistry basis, materials, and we selected for them that were brought in technological responses, and that's why we observed more of these responses. So the majority of these demands were of long term, followed by the short term and the medium term of 5%. The majority was regarding treatment, 51%, then diagnosis and prevention, 8%. the specialty, the medical specialty that had more demands for rheumatologies with 24%, and the least was cardiology, that shows the difference among the specialties of characteristics of the products that they have the necessity of. In this search, we saw that 51% were innovative solutions and 36% was of products that were already available in the market. And we talk about innovation, we're talking about studies that are under a preclinical analysis and for example, areas for development and pathways and mechanisms that are interesting for us to seek. So when we talk about finished products, we're talking about products that are available in the Unified Health System, but they're not insured, or they have Anvisa approval at least, or some other country, for example. And trying to make more objective and trying to materialize this, we see that in the majority of the demands, we have a demand for biopharmacists and other technologies, which is an important field in Bio-Manguinhos. So we carried out an analysis that were extended to the type of technology that was used for that demand for that product, and we had as answer that 32% was diagnostic reagents, and adding them, we had almost 30%, which for us is very relevant. And we were not talking only for biotechnology demands and several demands for the Unified Health System. And if you know that these are 24% is for monoclonal antibodies, and to know the importance of this and to talk about the prevention, 8.5 were from vaccines of bacteria, virus, and other pathogens. So from the 50 projects under development, 20% were explicitly discussed in the workshops, and surprisingly, 8 of the projects were mentioned in more than one workshop, which shows an alignment of Bio-Manguinhos and the demands of the assistants that we were working together and seeking to go to walk this together. So concluding, this embodying of the social participation represented by specialists and professionals that are attending the audience, the public, we attend this industrial pharmaceutical complex. They are aligned and they are looking at the end of the chain, and we're seeing that there is a demand and that our objective as a public industry is the Unified Health System and the Ministry of Health. So this is the message that we have: inclusivity and the assistance. So these professionals of healthcare, the healthcare providers, they have this commitment that is to promote the changes that affect biotechnology field. So this is the commitment that we are establishing in the pathway that we want to follow on. So I would like to thank you all, the departments of medical affairs, my colleagues from our team, and the physicians involved, the researchers, the competitive intelligence, and say that we are available at Arena if you want to know more about our work. Thank you very much.
Obrigada, Thay. Opa, obrigada. Alô? Estão me ouvindo?
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Thais. Congratulations on your presentation. It was very good. So I would like to invite you all to visit the exhibition, the poster exhibitions, and along the event, you vote for the most popular poster. You only have to access the application, the events application, using a thumbs up and choosing the favorable was, and this ending ceremony going to happen on the 10th in the afternoon. So I'd like to recommend you to access the application through our website on the participant area that is being projected on the screen. And with this application, you will be able to make questions directly to the participants. So you also should answer the survey so we can have the feedback for our event, and include your professional profile so that every participant in the event know each other and exchange information and have access to all registered works. And I remind you all that this is a hybrid event, and you can follow up our program live through our application. And you can also participate making your questions here in person. And here, so you can make your questions here in person or online through the chat, and we're going to make it to forward to the chair of the panel. So we have simultaneous translation, and for the virtual audience, you can click on the small flag under the video, and you will be a recording of these lectures on our platform, and you can watch it later. So we're going to start our 8th International Symposium on Immunobiologicals of Bio-Manguinhos and Fiocruz. So invite to the stage Fiocruz President Mário Moreira. The president of Getúlio Vargas Foundation, Carlos Ivan Simões Leal. Director of Bio-Manguinhos, Maurício Zuma. The General Coordinator for Promotion and Regulation of the Industrial Complex of the Ministry of Health, Marcelo de Matos Ramos, representing the Secretary of Science and Technology and Innovation and Strategic Inputs for the Ministry of Healthcare, Carlos Gadelha, who is currently in the Crisis Committee due to the catastrophe in Rio Grande do Sul state. And the coordinator of the Scientific Committee, Akira Roma. I would like to thank you, our sponsor and supporters of the event, Sanofi, Promega, GSK, Biotech, Citiva, SECTICS, Cefid, Beckman Coulter, Bio-Manguinhos, AstraZeneca, Getúlio Vargas Foundation, and Couto. We would like to invite you all to watch the institutional video of Bio-Manguinhos.
Nós, de Bio-Manguinhos, somos a unidade da Fundação Oswaldo Cruz, responsável por inovação, desenvolvimento tecnológico e pela produção de...
Responsible for innovation, the production of vaccines and kits for diagnostics, driven towards meet the demands of national healthcare. With the objective to organize and industrial scale the production of vaccines in the Fiocruz, we have an important role in the discussions of global healthcare and the preparation for emergency health crisis, collaborating with the society and the medical community and overcoming challenges. And we work in a partnership with the greater national, international entities, and we are the greater industrial park of biological products in Latin America. In 5 years, we supplied for PNI and OMS 780 million doses of vaccines, 58 kits for diagnosis, 23 millions of biopharmaceuticals, and acting in an efficient way in the COVID-19 pandemic. And we had 50 million kits of diagnostics and the public health care initiatives, and more than 233 million doses were supplied by PNI, and we produce it 100% in national territory, and we were chosen by WHO by innovative production of mRNA vaccines in the Caribbean and Latin America and the Caribbean. And we are an institution with a century tradition driven towards the future. We are building the industrial complex of biotechnology and health that will be the greater center for the manufacturing of biological products in Latin America. And we are 2,400 collaborators, and we are under continuous development, and we have 152 masters in an internal graduation program. We have a corporate education program and of knowledge management. Bio-Manguinhos is driven towards public health care that produces immunobiologicals, enhancing access to health in great centers and in remote places of Brazil and the world. We are Bio-Manguinhos, we are Fiocruz, and we are the unified healthcare system. We are public health. We have a little bit of bio and each Brazilian.
I would like also to invite the director of Opus Brazil, Socorro Gross.
Bem, eu passo então a palavra.
I'll give the floor now to Akira Roma. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Mário Moreira, I'd like to congratulate the members of our board, of our team, but I would like to, at this time, I'd like to pay tribute to the people of Rio Grande do Sul, the climate disaster that has victimized 85 people, hundreds of injured, and the population that were thrust into a very difficult situation. I would like to propose 1 minute of silence to pay tribute to the dead to the victims of Rio Grande do Sul.
Obrigado, gente.
Thank you, folks. My first words will be a note of thank you. I'd like to thank the director of Bio-Manguinhos for your constant direct support, Oswald Cruz Foundation, and the Getúlio Vargas Foundation, which has granted us this venue for our event, and all the sponsors, our sponsors, and have been mentioned here before, which have allowed us to have the financing for the various activities that we're undertaking. And I'd like to thank all the participants. We have over 3,200 subscribed people who have subscribed and enrolled online and presently here in Rio. We've had the large participation also in the presentation of the works. We have 130 works that we have selected, and they're out there at the poster session. And the question has been improved remarkably. I'd like to ask you for the support given.
ASCOM e todos os outros que estão que participaram diretamente.
For all the participation, the scientific commissions. We have discussed throughout the year the agenda and the topics that have been mentioned here, and also the commission of selection of works, the selection of works to be awarded, and they are working for some time to select the best studies that they'll be awarded a prize. Oswald Cruz, Carlos Chagas. Anyway, we have 6 different awards to be given out. In this sense, also, I would like to tell you that we are open to receive from all of you suggestions to improve the work we do, suggestions of topics for next year, and any other idea that you may have to improve and perfect this international symposium that has become even more international as time went by. In the sense, I'd like to tell you of the trust I have in the future, and that we're going to have increasingly better symposia that will bring information and provide a forum for discussion and to conjure up a forum for the exchange of ideas and discussions and debates, and to allow people to get together again and to reconnect. We've had meetings and reconnections of people that had not seen each other in years, and that has been wonderful. And also the possibility to make new friends and establish new partnerships. That's what I had to tell you at this opening session. Again, thank you to everybody present here today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Akira, for your words, and I'll give the floor now to Marcelo de Matos Ramos. You want to speak from the podium? It's your choice. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you on behalf of Minister Nízia Trindade and Secretary Carlos Gadelha the opportunity to be here and to be here at this event in its 8th edition, and to thank also Fiocruz and Bio-Manguinhos. They're great partners of ours. Well, the immunological medications are part and parcel of the arsenal of medicine against debilitating, sometimes fatal diseases. So we believe that it is a duty of the national public health system, especially the universal ones like ours, SUS, to be able to offer and provide access to people to these medications that combat these illnesses. However, these medications many times are at the frontier of innovation, and that's the reason why they have patents, and they have very high prices. That puts a stress on the public health systems of many countries, especially countries like Brazil. They take a lion's share of the purchases by our national public health system. Many of them are imported, which provides a further stress on our system because of foreign exchange rate problems. And there's the interface with the economic industrial complex and the health arena, whose goal is to since it is the complex which provides the material foundation, the basis for the public health system, public and private alike, it is the duty of the complex to be able to promote, foster development and production, local production of these medications insofar as possible. That's why I'm going to be telling you about the 6, I think a lot of you know. If you don't know, well, you'll have the chance to get to know them. As I said before, the SES is the very foundation of our public health, national health system, public and private alike, whose goal is to provide access to quality products, health products and services. Therefore, also the experience, the bitter experience of COVID taught us a few lessons, like the need to be able to produce locally many of those health products, and because we have seen shocks on supply chains worldwide, and also the countries that manufactured certain things stopped exporting them, and those that didn't produce them were left empty-handed in a very thorny situation. In that sense, starting in 2013, even though it says the complex industrial health complex is a concept developed starting in the year 2000. In the beginning of the government, there was a reenactment of the institutionality of SES. We have the national strategy for the development of SES, the matrix of technological products and health with priority areas for investments and foment, and the recreation actually, of the executive group of SES, with the participation of 11 ministries and 9 public departments to formulate measures and initiatives and actions to implement the strategies that I just told you about. This is the scheme, conceptual scheme of the SES, involving many segments, subsystems, chemical-based systems, mechanical-based, information and connectivity foundation, also the whole base of information services in all of these areas, and the service subsystem. All of these come together. The presence of the state has been felt. The SUS is the biggest universal public health system in the world. You can use the power, the purchasing power, the procurement power of the SUS to leverage investments in the production of several health products. And also there is a high potential to stimulate the economy. It's a key area for the 4th industrial revolution. A ripple effect of that reality is in the new government. It was the National Council for the Industrial Development has been recreated following the policy for a new reindustrialization of the country. And we have defined 6 missions have been defined, and health for the first time ever is one of the missions listed, the resilient health platforms to ensure resiliency and mitigate negative effects of health problems on the population. There's a national goal of providing 70% of the health products consumed in Brazil, produced and consumed in Brazil by 2033, if I'm not mistaken. These are the most important programs that make up this new policy. We have here the program to prepare vaccines and hemoderivatives and the blood byproducts, the program for the production of new health technologies for the population and neglected diseases, modernization and innovation in healthcare geared mostly to medical equipment and devices, and some other programs that are in reality tools, the PDP, which is a partnership program, and the PDC for the modernization of the infrastructure of the industrial complex, and the PDU geared to the development and local innovation and development. Each and every one of these programs will use the other ones as tools when it comes to developing local production and the technological development of our products. The program, the PPDN, both actually have these guidelines: innovation to local production, strengthening national public networks, the reduction of dependency, the dependence on foreign imports, and boosting global health initiatives. Each one of them programs and vaccines and geared to the population, neglected. And I can't see it well. Just a second. And all of them have specific decrees that have been published, and they and the programs that I said are tools. The PDCs have a published decrees, and the program of the PDP and PDU have been submitted to public inquiries and consultations by the ministry at the time they find themselves at a juncture in which they're being incorporated, the analyses of the many contributions made, and the public consultation rounds for their next publication, the upcoming publication. The decrees that have been published on vaccines and hemoderivatives, blood derivatives. The goal is to disseminate access to vaccines, productive capacity, stimulate production processes, restructure production networks, and research and development, and national platforms for research and development, and to contribute to ecological transition. And the other decrees have specific objectives. Neglected diseases. We understand that the question of these diseases, neglected diseases, it's a need to cater to. It's a failure, it's a market failure, because international companies have no interest in catering to these populations and these specific illnesses, because they're not diseases that affect developed countries. So there is a need to develop these technologies and these products in our own countries. To ensure the prevention and diagnosis and treatment, to support innovation, research and development, strengthen contribute to ecological environmental transition. These programs, how do they interact with each other? How do they establish a dialogue with the programs that I told you about that are tools? In the case of the PDP is a program geared to technology transfer to laboratories, to public laboratories, through partnerships with entities abroad that will allow for technology transfers to partner companies as well. So these are technologies that exist in which this technology transfer will be carried out towards local production, using as incentive the procurement power of the SUS, public health system in Brazil. The other mechanism, which is PDU, they use, and in this case, they would be geared to the development of solutions, innovative solutions. And the idea here is to use mechanisms for to purchase innovative products like technological products and offsets, among others. Basically, that's what I had to tell you. And I will be more than happy to answer questions and comments and for any queries you might have. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marcelo. I'll give the floor now to Mauricio Zuma. Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I will talk from the podium. I will I'll start something new. I would like to tell you that we have started, there was a promising beginning. Our event had a promising start. Dr. Kira talked about some figures, but I had other figures here. I got other information that you might not be aware of. Today, in the morning, we had 800 people present at this venue. It was standing room event. There were people in the other room, people standing, very expressive, significant number. Also, we have people watching us from 9 different countries.
So these are data of the people who are monitoring through the internet. So we are launching our 8th International Symposium of Immunobiologicals. It's actually started yesterday. We had events yesterday, satellite events, actually, mini courses being carried out in Bio-Manguinhos, also in a workshop about the G20, which was very interesting to seek positions. Fiocruz positions was restricted to Fiocruz, but positions and sets of Fiocruz that can be taken to work groups for health. And this is a Brazilian group for the G20, which will be held in Brazil this year, and it is being brought. The president of the event is Brazilian this year. So we had these several events yesterday, and this morning we had several panels. And I would like to say that my feeling is that we're going to have an event with many success, but this is an accumulation of experience. We have been working with this for a long time now, and our expectation is to generate integration among students, professionals, our colleagues, researchers, companies, partners, companies, institutions, suppliers. So this been happening very successfully, and I think that that is our objective, to make this integration and this discussion and to foster this discussion so that we can have outcomes in the medium and long term. So the production of new products, new services, new processes, all to the Brazilian healthcare public healthcare, and also the international healthcare. So I would like to say hello to you all and our participants on this table, and to invite you to continue on this participation. This is very important of you all being able to participate, and that we are going to have, for sure, very promising results for our country and for our public health in Brazil and internationally. I would like to I cannot refrain from thanking the scientific community and ASCOM, who is working in the organization of this event, And this is a lot of effort to organize this kind of event. And for you to have an idea, we will have for next week a meeting for the assessment of this event, which will be a preparation for the next event. So we close one and we start working the next event. And this is one of the secrets that we have, this tenacity in the work. And Dr. Akita has no other way out. So we work from the end of this one. So this is one of the secrets that make us ensure the success that we want to have in the result of these events. So in addition to the commission, I have to take my glasses. So I'd like to thank José Carlos Duque, our partner from the Getúlio Vargas Foundation, which since the beginning we offers the space so that we could organize here, and all, of course, Professor Simonson from the Getúlio Vargas Foundation as well, that promptly approved this, our request. So thank you very much. We had very important feedbacks regarding the structure here, and this regarding our previous edition, it was a great progress bringing the event here to this venue. So maybe we could request for next year the same venue. So I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity of being here. I would also like to thank Mario, our president, for the customary support. And I would like also to thank our sponsors, because without them, it would be very difficult to carry out this kind of event of this dimension, and offering all of everything that we need for example, for the speakers, the foreign speakers, the structure that we need to the hotel, transportation. And without our sponsors, this would not be possible to organize this event in the way we are doing. So I'd like to thank the companies, and I already thanked them, but once more, Sanofi, Promega, GSK, Biotech, Aceitiva, Asayax, Asafade, Batman Culture, Bionovis, FGV, and Croda. So AstraZeneca, I'm sorry, I think I forgot. It's not on my list. So it's not on my list, indeed. So it's going to be part of our evaluation next week. So AstraZeneca, who is our partner with the COVID vaccine and future partnerships as well. I would like to thank the support that we receive from these companies, and without them, without the support, it would not be possible to carry out this event. I would like to wish to you all an excellent event. I would like to thank, I forgot to thank all the speakers and all that came from their countries, from their other states, and to leave their professional activities to come to our city and to participate with in the event. So I'd like to thank you all. Also the students who are here presenting their work posters that were made to present here, the evaluation committee, who are going to decide the best works, and to thank all that have any kind of participation and that have any link to the organization of our event. So once more, I would like to wish a great event on these 2 days. We still have the launching of a very important book, which is a biotechnology that was a partnership with the Rheumatology Association, or in a partnership with this society. So it generated a wonderful book with 200 people participating in it, and going to be launched on our booth downstairs. You should not miss it. It's going to be a great book, and you should know. So thank you very much, and you have a great event to you all. Thank you, Maurício Zuma. And I pass the floor to Simão Sem Leal, Mr. Simão Sem Leal. I'm not sure if I was supposed to say, but Fiocruz area is almost orthogonal to my knowledge, but I'm going to take the risk. And first of all, we like to follow Professor Akira and the Velevich Fondal, which was a Russian scientist. I'm going to say hello to you all and have that nomination of 60 people in the events, and you end up talking only 2 minutes. So I want to say hello to you all, and I would like to say the following. The foundation does not have nothing direct to teach directly to Fiocruz. It is a research and teaching institution, and it was born in the past with the famous seal law behind it. And looking at you, that it would say that your birth certificate would say that this event you would be here in this Getúlio Vargas Foundations. And one day these seals were extinguished and the problems that the foundation faced started. And in 1980, that this institution that was a great knowledge center, it was actually empty without the capacity of doing things because there was no funding. And financial resources is something that people do not want to talk about. It doesn't bring happiness, but the lack of it brings much unhappiness. So we started emptying, losing prestige, and in 1987 we saw that we were orphans, and we started seeking our support, or vital support. And immediately we faced a dilemma that was how to do it and still keep the mission that we had previously. So we had the same mission to simulate the economic development in Brazil. It can be a platitude. There are other entities that have the same missions, but we have a history that tells the story. And at the same time, we do have the necessity of funding initiatives. 30 years later, this was and its majority was solved, and we had several changes and consequences in this process. You can do things like bring sustainability and also meet the requirements of being a public good. You don't need to do everything out of cost-free, but for others you have to charge for that service because you're going to leverage on it. So this was very well solved, and before the pandemic we reached a conclusion, and I was very pleased to see the exhibition here because it's completely ready for this. And I do not understand anything of the subject that of your field of knowledge, but I have this feeling. And then we started to look at it, and we saw that there was something wrong on what we are doing. And we are being a candidate to be the first party. So we dance very well. This is the image that we use, but we have to go into the ball. So the gafieira dance means that this year they just launched the top 10 graduation schools in Brazil. We have 6, the first, the second, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, something like that. I'm glad that Fiocruz was not there, otherwise you will be first place and I will be second. But the fact is that when you have 6 in 10 in the country in the size of Brazil, it's not only the merits, our merit, but also it's demerit of the rest, because you lack funding, you lack organization, you have these issues. But what matters is that having the 6 or 7 or 5, it doesn't mean much because you're still in the party. You only get to the ball if your research is for real. And for that to happen, it has to have two characteristics. First of all, innovation, which is very difficult. People may think, oh, I'm going to have an idea today for innovation. No, the good innovation is the one that you find in the research work and you get to it and you stumble upon it. The second thing is that you have to treat the issues here. We do not have, for example, to understand of all problems and apply all of the solutions that are being applied in the United Kingdom. For example, Brazil loves to copy foreign solutions. And here in Brazil, you copy the privatization model and the English territory, and you applied it in Brazil, and of course this had consequences that were not forecasted. So we cannot trust and we cannot depend on it. We were mentioning the matter of the vaccine against COVID, and I participated in a seminar where the president of Broken Institute, which is considered the first think tank of the world, the general 4 stars general. He had a chest that was much bigger than mine, so he can carry all the medals. He said the United States is going to have the vaccine, going to solve the vaccine problem, and going to supply the vaccine to the world. It's good that the government did not listen to him, otherwise we wouldn't haven't taken any actions. What happened that the United States was not the first having the vaccine, and when they did, one of them was BioNTech, that that I understand was a Pfizer-BioNTech partnership from Germany. The other one was the Moderna, which was a North American researcher, and I don't know if they I'm quite sure they did not supply vaccines to Brazil at the time, but we did had stumble upon the problem of not having the basic structures to manufacture the vaccines. There are no miracles. We have to have the maintenance in our facilities to have the manufacturing. And in Brazil, we need to have a research. It's not being a xenophobe, but we have to have the capacity of thinking. And Fiocruz is a special entity in this sense, because all the hardships and the Brazilian budget, and this is a great evil of Brazil, is the lack of capacity of planning in general due to the budget process. And with the hardships of the Brazilian budget, Bio-Manguinhos was able to carry out and with these along these years, and we are ready, and Bio-Manguinhos is ready, and we need to get the funding and tighten our rhythm, speed up. Otherwise, it won't be possible. Here at the FGV Foundation, it's interesting because we were completely supported by the government to immense funding of 500,000 reais, and our budget developments 20-fold during the period that this happened. Of course, Fiocruz, it's a public good, an asset, much more than we are. But everything is possible when we have the goodwill and the mass, the critical mass to do it. So we cannot be limited only to the hardships of a country that wants to invest in its own science. 2 billion reais while in healthcare, while Microsoft's investment was of $20 billion. So it's 125 billion reais, and one company invested 60 times more than what we are investing. So for you to compete, then you have to compete saying that if you're going to face these obstacles, I will not be able to accomplish. I will be defeated. I have to think how I'm going to fight against it and choose my battles, choose the necessary battles, the research that are needed, and this will be the drive of everything. And that's where we have the added value. And just to complete, we are seeing another subject regarding public health, and the public health issues are not only of healthcare, but also of public administration. And we have another issue of public health, which I would say is a scandal. And those of that we got used to it, is that the number of MRIs that are carried out in Brazil at least it's 1/8 of what would be needed. And with that, we expend $500 million importing isotopes. So we could do it here, a multi-purpose reactor, and make the isotopes to attend the population and make the same reactor within a year, less than a year. So if Bio-Manguinhos launches and other initiatives launches in this sense, we can do a lot. We're not going to be able to do everything, but we can do we can accomplish greatly. So this is the reason of FGV accepting having you here and holding the event, because we do not need to understand of biology. We have you for that, but we have to have the motivation of going after the resources to do the bare minimum, and then we can showcase what we have done. In our case, to leverage all the resources, because it's necessary to leverage them. It's not a matter of not wanting to leverage or ideological problem. The thing is that we do not have the funding, the government does not have the resources. The resources are very much limited. We have to invest and we have to evolve to reduce the level of diseases and welfare, especially in the more poor part of the population. So I'd like to thank the attendants here and you all for your presence, and my colleagues here and the presence. And I do not understand, this is not my subject, not my field. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to read all the papers. Sometimes we are surprised here, and we have mathematicians here that they look very differently at things. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos Ivan Simonsen Leal. I'm going to give the floor now to Socorro Gross. Good afternoon to everyone who's participating in this important meeting, and the people that have this technology that we're using and following up on, and if they're following this symposium. I would like to do the same the president of the Getúlio Vargas Foundation. I'd like to salute the table, acknowledge the president's presence of all of you on behalf of the president of Fiocruz, my friend Maria Moreira. But we also have someone who for me is very important, who has a track record for us in the Americas, and that's Dr. Akira. I must really acknowledge his presence and thank him for his great work. We've been walking together but for so long, it's been so long that we've been doing great projects together with other great luminaries of public health, like Dr. Francisco Quadros. And I must also tell you talk about this other institution, which is centuries old, like the Pan American Health Organization. And we have the director, Esther Kallás, Institute of Butantan Institute, two institutions that together have made history in our Latin American region and the Caribbean too, a region that has the opportunity now to change what we have been, and a region that has a great deal of potential, but it's a region that has not done everything it could have done. And I'd like to congratulate you on behalf of the Ministry of Health, Brazil for the presidency of the G20 to bring forth an innovative alliance, a global alliance towards the production and innovation, regional innovation and local innovation for health products. We do hope that we'll be able to celebrate that this be a decision, important decision, because this would be a milestone, not just in the history of the G20, which is an economic forum, but also in our region, in the Americas. Today, here we have virtually all of those who make innovation and the production of health products, public and private alike. For us as a Pan American Health Organization, we've been working strenuously in the course of the past 121 years in pharmaceutical policies, access policies, and improvements, and to strengthen regulatory frameworks in our region. And we're the only organization that has two funds that they make purchases, and they use this power of the procurement power of the countries to do joint purchases, which is the rotating funds for immunobiological products, and was created by a gaucho, Dr. Cesar de Quadros, 45 years ago, and a fund, also strategic fund for health products that brings diagnostics, insecticides, pesticides, and so many products. It's been in operation for 23 years. But we don't have one item, one piece of the machinery. That's because of a resolution of our board a year ago. It was established that the resolution that the PAHO had to work in cooperation to expand innovation and production in our region, especially Latin America and the Caribbean. And to that end, our director, Dr. Jabras Barbosa da Silva, is very well known in Brazil. He's Brazilian, and he's someone who worked very hard on innovation. He was the secretary, president of Anvisa, and created a department at OPAS, at PAHO, of innovation for access to technology and health products. Today, I'd like to thank you and to have the possibility of talking to you today, and also to present the female force in science and technology, the force of women in this field. I think that I think we also have in the region a wide array of women in science and technology that are making history at the same time that our male friends and colleagues are making history too. So today I would like to put two reflections to your attention. The great, number one, the great possibility that we have in our region. Brazil is a country, it's a continent, it's a continental country. It has the greater social protection policies that we could aspire to in a country with over 200 million people, which is Zeus, a capacity of procurement power that's very large. And it's a capacity, we have human talent, developed human talent with these universities and these people and these scientists and with masters and PhDs and we're working on technologies because we cannot expand technology and innovation if we don't have the human resources, the human talent, and the human talent that we need. Brazil has institutions, several institutions, centuries old, new institutions also that have the possibility of expanding production. The country has has had the political decision to make it. We would have to evolve to have a state policy, as is the state policy that Brazil has, to become the largest exporter of beef and grain in the world, and grains. Brazil would have to have the same state policy that doesn't change government after government, but it depends on political will. We depend on Brazil as an opportunity for the Americas, especially Latin America and the Caribbean. And in our organization, we have brought this, we have placed a stress on cooperation to have the possibility with the funds that we have. These are funds that have the capacity to use this ability, this procurement power of the countries in the region to engage a market chain for our region. Also, we have in our resolution a decision which will be taken to the executive board, which is the products that we are purchasing on a priority basis through the funds. These should be products produced locally, regionally, in our region. Otherwise, if we don't have these funds, if we're not doing it through our funds, this is what we would like to create capacity in our countries. The pandemic has left us, and there's no way to forget it. The pandemic has shown us the weaknesses that we have and the frailty and the vulnerability that the market chains for health products has in the whole world, and these are products that don't have any market elasticity. If we don't buy the products, we end up dying. So there's no elasticity. We must not forget what happened at the pandemic, what happened in our region, in a region that only consumes 4% of the health products that brings from abroad. 96% are imported goods. Those were the estimates by Sapal. We must not keep going like that. Another pandemic will come along, and we will have new protection products for our workers and medicine and medications. Brazil had them, but other countries didn't. So we have the possibility, yes, we do, of getting ready, not just for a pandemic, but for what this region actually needs. That is to produce for today and for tomorrow, for a region that is getting old quickly, a region that has needs for other products that are not produced locally, and the region that has the capacity to absorb what we have at this point in the world and in the market, and the market for values. The first and the most valuable products for weapons geared to war, but the second most prized values are health technologies and products. So I think that Brazil has, for us in our region, the possibility of being the country that will indeed change the history of Latin America and the Caribbean. We hope to work together again, hand in hand, also well into the future to support the efforts that are being undertaken by Brazil. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Socorro Gross. And now I'll give the floor to Mr. Mário Moreira. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge our dear colleagues at on the table. We can hardly hear what this person is saying. Unfortunately, the translation is, now it's getting better. We have Marcelo, our colleague, who's advocating the industrial health complex. My director from Bio-Manguinhos, Professor Simonson, and now I must confess the double happiness of being here today, coming back to the Getúlio Vargas Foundation after 30 years. I was a student here at the Brazilian School of Public Administration, and you're partly responsible for the success of Bio-Manguinhos. Artur, the director of Bio-Manguinhos, who preceded Zuma and myself. We've been partners since the 1990s. And also, I would like to extend a warm salute, especially in a tribute to Dr. Akira Homa, my mentor, who has had a personal life history which is totally intertwined with the history and the success of Bio-Manguinhos. Dr. Akira was an architect and engineer at this work, and is working every day to this day of the success story. It's a Brazilian success story that we're witnessing. I'd like to make a correction on the institutional video that you were shown. Even though Bio-Manguinhos has obtained its civil certification in 1976, in reality, Bio-Manguinhos has developed vaccine production activities since the middle of last century, when the Federal Serotherapeutic Institute was created. It's been in operation for over 120 years, even though the official name and its legal status was reached only in the 70s, last century. I would also like to remind you that I'm bringing you a warm salute from Minister Nízia. She couldn't be here today for obvious reasons, much like Secretary Kallás, as Marcelo said. They're directly involved in the mitigation efforts to counter the effects of the disaster that took place because of climate change that many people still insist on denying. The development model, so-called development in progress, that has destroyed the planet and has brought about damage directly to the population worldwide. And I'd like to salute the audience, especially my colleagues, friends, and colleagues at Bio-Manguinhos, my original unit at Fiocruz, and also public and private partners that are present here today, exhibitors, students, and the whole audience that is here aggrandizing this event that has to do also with the 48th anniversary of Bio-Manguinhos. We've mentioned the presence of Professor Esper. I'd like to acknowledge him. His institution has been a partner of ours for 123 years, so we're almost twins. And we signed a very important strategic partnership for the whole of Brazil, for the country. I think that we can tell you the history of Bio-Manguinhos in many different ways, but I'm going to choose to tell it from a point of view of the development of Bio-Manguinhos as presented, the exuberant development, I would say. I remember the crises that we have faced back in the 1990s, in which for many years and many different ways and many fora, even inside Fiocruz, Bio-Manguinhos was questioned as for its economic and technological viability, feasibility. But the DNA of Bio-Manguinhos is the DNA that points to the overcoming of challenges and obstacles. That's what we're celebrating today. I would say that much of the unified public health system has grown together in tandem with Bio-Manguinhos. I could mention the example, clear and evident case of the development of the national program of immunizations in tandem with the PASMING program, which led to immunological self-sufficiency that made production companies to develop at the same time that other institutions were developed and turned into the largest vaccination program in the world, be it because of the cohorts achieved and the whole roster of vaccines that are provided free of charge and high quality vaccines to the whole population. It's a world benchmark. It's a world reference to the whole world. I'd say the HIV program, we've had an important participation in the production of antiretroviral products, the production of blood and blood derivatives were developed together with the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, the test that that springs all the blood donated in Brazil through molecular means. There are stories of symbiosis that are very positive with the development of the unified public health system. Bio-Manguinhos, in addition to this relationship with the unified public health system, operating on ensuring technological autonomy through the whole system. Our unified public health system is the only system in the world which is public, universal, catering to over 100 million people. In our case, we cater to 200 million people. To be more accurate, 203 million people, of whom 75% of them depend exclusively on the unified public health system. To think of a system so big, which operates under the aegis of the Brazilian Constitution that outlines health as a duty of each citizen and as the right of every citizen and the duty of the state. We must ensure the viability of the system by any means, and where I'd like to celebrate the growth of the private industry here. And in the past few years, it's different from what we have seen 20, 30 years ago.
So alongside this role that I call of sanitary safety, of the autonomy of our unified health system, and from the development of the national production, Bio-Manguinhos has a key role in the balance of the trade balance of Brazil. This sector is one of the most important sector in Brazil, with $120 billion exports, income, employment, prosperity, and wealth. This is what Marcelo was mentioning when he described the policy of the complex, industrial complex, is an effort that is required to revert the situation so it can generate employment, technology, development, including of the Brazilian science. This is what we are aligning, the public and the private partnerships and the research entities in this country. This is important to have in mind, this dimension that is also economic and of industrial development. As Marcelo mentioned, and I'm going to take some of what you said, the policy for this, the new industrialization policy, and has 6 S's, and one of them is towards healthcare, not only the production and also the offering of services, and having the SUS as one of the great agent. And no country in the world and the multilateral bodies have the power of purchase that the SUS has. There have countries that buy more in this healthcare field, but not as centralized as the Ministry of Health does. So this capability and this economic potency has to be directed to the development of this industry, and is going to produce more fruits, more results. And I have a report from Manguinhos and Bio-Manguinhos, and we have 40 products in our portfolio. So Bio-Manguinhos is an example that it has produces effects. We are under the expectation of the launching of new instruments and tools for the policy, so that the policy can improve and to be developed in the institutionality of the Brazilian scenario. And we also like to take the opportunity to talk about, we have partners here of the private sector specifically, and we have developed our industrial capacity, and we have today a project that counts on the partnership with Professor Bucchi, and we have in Santa Cruz a plant with a capex of 6 billion reais, more than 1 billion euros, and more than $1 billion. And if you have any questions regarding its sustainability and its purpose, I do not have anything else aside from the certainty that it is necessary not only for the production of Brazilian serum, but also for the healthcare system worldwide. So we have the expectation that is great regarding the role of Bio-Manguinhos, of this effort of the mitigation of the asymmetry in the healthcare system. So Bio-Manguinhos has a very important role in the exportation of yellow fever and meningitis, and it's pre-qualified for the double viral vaccine. It has also a role that is not only to be mRNA vaccination to meet the requirements in Brazil and the demands in Brazil, and also as an institution that is able to create frameworks for Latin America and also Africa in the future to be autonomous in the production of health products. So this is a great accountability, and Bio-Manguinhos is a global actor that is of central importance, because the multinationals will not direct resources for this kind of initiative. So the nature of Bio-Manguinhos can do so, and this kind of institution also can do so. So let's invest in this kind of a structure so that we can consolidate this as a routine action. So I say this as a responsible to equate this kind of problem, and Mauricio asked me for this, which is the management model of Bio-Manguinhos, who operates industry that has a revenue of 8 or 9 billion reais. So you can imagine the sacrifice and the effort of the teams involved to do this with very much competence. So I think this is the challenge that we have together with the federal government, and we are counting on the support of the general advocacy of the union and also the Ministry of Innovation, of the public service, so that we can outline a service that has Manguinho as an example of a non-proper adequation of the current model. And we here make the commitment to solve these issues as soon as possible. And of course, we have to go to Congress and to executive powers and branches. And we are going to meet solutions that are adequate for the challenges that Bio-Manguinhos faces. And we're going towards the end, and we have here with all our partners that are present here today together with the Bio-Manguinhos team, and we have this challenge that once we can equate the industrial infrastructure, and I think that we are already solving this when we have the consolidation of this new plant and when it comes to start operating. And we have other issues that also have regarding innovation that we also have to solve, but the main investment is in the expansion of our industrial capacity, and this has to be linked to a technological capacity. And I have talked to Mauricio about this, and I think that there are partnerships with national, international companies will be essential for that. But with an understanding that technology transfer cannot be alone, it has to be linked to also other actions, because we know that these were connected to the portfolio, the technological portfolio of Manguinhos, but also with the production of new vaccines and the immunobiologicals, because we have this capacity. So this is a calling as well to our partners, our private partners, that we engage in technological development initiatives. It is not of the nature of the relationship that we have and to invest in Brazilian innovation, but I think that we have to overcome this barrier and to move on to this cooperation model. I could also mention that the expectation in Brazil and international regarding Bio-Manguinhos is immense, and it's growing, and without a doubt, and any situation that emerges as a sanitary challenge, and Bio-Manguinhos is part of the solution, and we have been giving the response. And this is very important because now our current challenge internationally, I would say that every time that Bio-Manguinhos is called to face the challenges, we have been meeting the expectations, and this is Dr. Akira is one of the responsibles for this, and this is why this is a very reason of us to be very proud, as well as the unified health system. And with this, I complete my lecture, and greetings for Bio-Manguinhos. Thank you, Mr. Mário Moreira. And now we're going to watch the message of the OPAS director, Jarbas Barbosa, the PAHO director.
Symposium on immunobiologicals, and especially the panel of speakers who composed this opening table. I would like to express my gratitude to Bio-Manguinhos Fiocruz for inviting me to participate in the opening of this symposium, which will address the important topic of promoting biotechnological development for immunization and immunotherapy, accelerating innovative solutions for population health. Immunization saves millions of lives each year, and it is one of the most successful public health interventions to promote health and sustainable development. Today, immunization can prevent more than 20 life-threatening diseases. Since 2010, 116 countries across the globe have introduced new vaccines to prevent pneumonia, cervical cancer, typhoid, cholera, and meningitis, among others. Innovation in the field of immunization is more critical than ever to confront the emerging global public health threats, as evidenced by the development of vaccines against COVID-19, and to protect against persistent threats such as malaria, dengue fever, and Ebola virus disease. In the region of the Americas, it is important to highlight some of the great efforts led by countries to expand immunization coverage. For example, countries in the Americas have gone from including 6 vaccines in their national vaccination schedules to an average of more than 16 vaccines, conferring greater protection in health for the population. In recent years, human papillomavirus vaccine has been introduced in 47 countries and territories, pneumococcal vaccine in 37 countries, and the rotavirus vaccines in 22 countries. The introduction of these vaccines was made possible by the collective action of committed stakeholders from the industrial sector that have developed vaccines, national regulatory authorities overseeing quality and safety in product use, and policymakers supporting the delivery of these products within health services. Yet, despite this progress, some challenges persist in terms of vaccination coverage and equitable access to vaccines. For example, almost 2 million children in the region of the Americas have not completed their basic schedules of the diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis vaccine, while in 9 countries in the region, a coverage of less than 80% was reported on the first dose of vaccines against measles, mumps, and rubella. In addition to vaccines, during the last 15 years, health systems throughout the region have made efforts to increase access to other immunobiologicals, such as monoclonal antibodies. There are currently more than 50 therapeutic MABs on the market for the treatment of different types of cancer, autoimmune, and infectious diseases. However, these medicines are very expensive, and most of them are protected by patents, limiting their access. Additionally, the region is highly dependent on imports of health technologies, as reflected in the persistent trade deficit of pharmaceutical products. In 2020 alone, the value of imports from the pharmaceutical sector was 6 times higher than that of exports. In the case of vaccines, that difference was 80-fold. The high dependency on other regions underscores the importance of developing ecosystems that are conducive to and facilitate regional innovation and production. Encouraging investment in the pharmaceutical capacity in our region not only contributes to reducing dependence on imports, but also generates employment and stimulates economic growth. Fortunately, Latin America is not starting from zero. The region has strong foundations in health technology regulation, innovation, and production capacity. Brazil has been a leader in this regard. For example, in Brazil, public producers such as Butantan and Bio-Manguinhos supply most of the vaccines and other immunobiologics provided by the National Immunization Program. Additionally, in December 2023, the Ministry of Health established the Metrics of Productive and Technological Challenges in Healthcare, including vaccines as strategic products for technological development to prepare for health emergencies. Brazil, through its presidency of G20, is proposing to expand this vision to the world, and PAHO supports Brazil's proposal to create a G20 alliance for local and regional production and innovation in health. At the same time, there are public and private productive capacities in Argentina, Cuba, Mexico, and Nicaragua, and other countries such as Colombia have expressed strong commitments and are at different stages of development to increase regional production capacities. In our pursuit of increasing local production of health technologies, including immunobiologicals, we must recognize that strengthening regulatory capacity is essential. A mature, agile, transparent, and well-resourced regulatory system that is aligned with international standards is fundamental to guarantee quality, safety, and efficacy throughout the project's life cycle, and also creates an environment that encourages investment in local production and fosters public confidence. In 2022, Member States renewed PAHO's mandate to provide technical support to strengthen regulatory capacities, and we will continue to provide our Member States with technical support to overcome the regulatory challenges associated with immunobiological products with a view to strengthening regulatory systems and to promote harmonization and convergence. PAHO also contributes to increase innovation and access to immunobiologicals. The revolving fund for access to vaccines provides access to safe, quality vaccines at affordable price to its member states. The revolving fund generates around 50% savings in purchases of vaccines biologics, and cold chain equipment for our member states. In addition, in 2023, the Department of Innovation, Access to Medicines and Health Technologies, IMT, was created to strengthen our technical cooperation and expand access to health technologies with an equitable approach that extends to the entire life cycle of healthy products. This approach focuses on strengthening regulatory systems, promoting strategic investments in innovation and manufacturing ecosystems, supporting technology development and transfer, and training human resources. It seeks to support the development of resilient supply chains, increase the access to financing, and consolidating stable and predictable demand, ensuring access to medicines and health technologies aligned with the health needs of the population. Through this department, PAHO also leads efforts in vaccine innovation and manufacturing through the Regional Innovation and Production Platform, with mRNA vaccine development projects in Argentina and Brazil. In Argentina, a public-private partnership was forged integrating the production of vaccines and the strategic components of the value chain, and in Brazil, the project supported the development of an mRNA vaccine that, if successful in clinical trials, would be available throughout the region. Notwithstanding, innovation and the development of vaccines and biosimilars require major investments and complex clinical development processes, which limit the number of manufacturing companies that can develop these products. In this context, it is critical to amplify our efforts to strengthen regional cooperation and the capacities of the region of the Americas through translational research and the exchange of knowledge and experiences. PAHO remains committed to working with our countries and the private sector to improve access to immunobiologicals. Forums such as this symposium allow us to establish connections and strengthen alliances to promote the development of agreements and collaboration frameworks, placing equitable access to vaccines and other immunobiologicals at the center of our actions. Thank you for your attention and commitment to advancing this important issue.
Bem, agradecemos a mensagem de Jarbas Barbosa.
Would like to thank Jarbas Barbosa. We'll now hear from the president of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom.
Dr. Socorro, dear colleagues and friends, bon dia. Immunobiologicals are among the most powerful tools in the history of medicine. From the first smallpox vaccine in 1796, to modern vaccines for COVID-19 and malaria, to monoclonal antibodies and the latest immunotherapies against cancer. And yet, many people cannot access these life-saving products either because they are not affordable or not available. The prevalence of substandard and falsified products is another major challenge. During the COVID-19 pandemic, some countries hoarded medicines, vaccines, and health products, while others went without. These inequities show why we need more local and regional research and development, manufacturing and distribution, and strengthened regulatory capacity. That's why WHO established the mRNA Technology Transfer Program in Cape Town, a multilateral network with partners in 15 countries, including Bio-Manguinhos and Fiocruz. We also established a global training hub in biomanufacturing in the Republic of Korea. I thank Bio-Manguinhos and Fiocruz for your partnership in expanding access to these life-saving tools for those who need them most. Because the right to health means the right to the tools to protect and promote health for everyone. Obrigado. I thank you.
Agradecemos a mensagem de Tedros Adhanom e também gostaríamos de agradecer a presença dos senhores e da senhora na nossa cerimônia de abertura. Muito obrigada. Bem, convidamos a todos para o coquetel de lançamento do livro Tratado Brasileiro de Biotecnologia em Saúde, da bancada ao leito e a apresentação de pitches. E lembro também, peço que vocês lembrem de trazer amanhã, não deixem de trazer as doações para os nossos amigos do Sul. Muito obrigada, boa noite, até amanhã.